Horizon Thunder Sphere!
And let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Night's Last Call. My Stream Deck needed to reboot there, and I didn't know if it was working, so I had to test it. Nothing like doing it live, right? But hopefully you enjoyed the chanting of role-playing game, role-playing game, role-playing game. Not, as some of you may have thought, rocket propelled grenade. Welcome, everyone, to a wonderful and fantastically fun stream tonight. It feels like I haven't talked to you all in forever. It was last Thursday that we, 2 Thursdays ago, I should say, that we were talking like we are now. Of course, last Tuesday was Root, which, you got to play with us, but we don't have the same level of intimacy as we do tonight. And then, of course, last Thursday I was in Gen Con. So it's been about 12 days since we've had an opportunity to sit down. So for us, I feel like it feels like it's a long time. Ben is saying that the RE20 sounds better tonight, and Ben, that is because in OBS I am running your Reaper compressors and EQs. So there you go. That's probably what it is. So as I suspected in the Zoom, which was just raw microphone, it was a little bit punchy. So there we go. Sup KC, good to see you here. We have a member message from Mr. Damian Williams. So many things about this game that I enjoy. Yes, our patrons voted for this first look, but it's really been Damian Williams who has been sort of championing it for the last, I would say, a couple months since the second edition dropped earlier this year. And is my understanding, the hardcover just premiered at Gen Con. In fact, I saw it many times, was thinking about purchasing it, but I was like, well, I'll do the first look first before I invest in the hardback. So welcome everyone indeed. Yes, Rylan, apologies. Mr. Bumbarger was not feeling great today. I myself was a little worn down from Gen Con. So we decided not to do Root today rather than not play at our best. So we kind of have this backup stream instead, and we're going to be talking about Fantasy Age, a first look. And for those of you who haven't been a part of our first look series before, this is me going into a role-playing game with only the barest. There's very few role-playing games that I know nothing about, but I've never read the book. I've never dived into it. So this is kind of going to be me reacting to the book. We're going to kind of learn the rules together, and we can kind of explore the space as a group, and we can ask questions. We can come up with answers. And of course, as we go through these first looks, I am always in the back of my mind, sort of keeping in mind the 3 Jared Sorensen questions, which is this game telling us what it's about? And what is this game trying to do? In other words, why would I play this game over, say, Dungeons and Dragons? Why would I play this game, say, over Fate? Right? What is this game bringing that is unique? What does it purport to to do? Secondly, what are the mechanics of the game? And do those mechanics support what the game says it is trying to be about? And do we enjoy those mechanics? And are those mechanics interesting? And would those mechanics lead to fun play patterns? Can we imagine what it would be like to be playing with these mechanics at the table? And would that generate results that are both fun, but also in line with what the game is trying to deliver on? And then lastly, what does the game do if you use the mechanics to do the thing that the game is about? How does the game reward you? And this is one of those things where people say, "Oh, it's fun," but that's a bad answer because a game of being fun is sort of a truism, right? It's a given that a game is fun, and fun is also fairly subjective. But a game should instead reward players for engaging with it in the intended way. And this should create a positive feedback cycle where the more you engage with the game, the more you are rewarded, and the better you're able to engage in the game, and so on and so forth. It's not universally true, but usually it's a pretty good litmus test. So yeah, let us go ahead and let me go through here. Anybody else here? Let's see. London, good evening to you as well. Pumpkin, what's up? Glad to see you here. Bam Curtain Bear says hello, and I say hello back. It is Mercia's first time catching us here live. Well, welcome. Frostjack is looking forward to learning about the system, knowing close to next to nothing. That's awesome. That's what we're here for. Quick Gen Con recap. Well, Frostjack, as a member of the Knights of the Last Call, you have access to the video on demand of our Monday Patreon Q&A, where I went over Gen Con in depth. I pulled out everything I bought. I talked about some of the people I met. All in all, very busy, very, very crowded. A lot of vendors there. Fifth edition presence, actually fairly minimal. A lot of people thought that maybe D&D was going to be coming out, big booths and a lot of stuff, going on at Gen Con. Wasn't there. Daggerheart game premiered, a very early alpha version of it. Looks pretty cool. People were fighting over the Disney CCG. There was police called. All in all, it was a pretty interesting experience for me to go back to, but I believe it was record-setting attendance, and it was quite a lot of people. It was kind of overwhelming. Casey says, Fantasy Age was the system used for the Dragon Age RPG, right? That is correct, Casey. And in fact, that is the only experience that I have with this system. The Dragon Age, you may remember those video games. I think those came out during like the PS2, PS3 era, but there was a series of sort of action role-playing games called the Dragon Age series. And Green Ronin got the license to make a game based off of that video game, and that became the Dragon Age RPG. So calling it Fantasy Age, and Age stands for Adventure Game Engine, which is sort of the system that they use, is actually a backronym because the game was originally just called Dragon Age because, the video game was called Dragon Age. So they sort of retrofit Age into a term that could be used as a generic system, aka Adventure Game Engine. And they did a Fantasy Age first edition, but I never played that. I never picked that up. And to be honest with you, with Dragon Age, I only played it at a couple of con games when it first came out. So I'm only vaguely aware of what is going on in the game. So this is really kind of a, return to it. I think it's over 10 years old at this point. Henry knows the Sorensen questions. Fantastic. Hi, Ken. Glad to see you. Pumpkin's a little sad this wasn't a BG3 stream. TLDR, we should just do NightCon. That was the feedback from Gen Con. All right. Henry, I will accept that. I will buy that. That's the only acceptable excuse for missing the Q&A. Frostjack is playing a game. Yeah, again, it was, this was probably like my 19th or something, 18th, 19th Gen Con. It was a lot of fun, but also a little sad because, I see where the hobby is, and there are some things about it that make me very happy, and there are some things about it that make me a little concerned. And so all in all, I would say I had a good time. It was really great to be able to meet so many fans who came up to me and said, hey, I love your stuff, and, you want to shoot the shit for a little bit, and happy to do so. I got told some great stories by some people. A lot of the people who I think came up to me were basically 5e players who kind of found our channel through exploring Pathfinder 2nd Edition. But, there were also a lot of people who, said they liked a lot of the other stuff that we're doing, and they were learning a lot of RPGs from our channel. So that is what we're about. In fact, that is what we are about tonight. So a couple of things as we kind of dig into this. We have a couple tip goals. We have our super chat, which if we can get, I picked up while we were there at an indie. I picked up the Call of Cthulhu, a game which I honestly, I'll be honest with you, have never owned and I've never read. So our super chat goal tonight is if we can get to $100 on the super chat goal, we will add a Call of Cthulhu first look to the upcoming stream docket, which I think will be a lot of fun. Our tip goal, which you can use through !tip in chat, or you can find a link to our Stream Elements tip page in the description below the video. It's a little bit more work to go through that. I appreciate that, but we do get a higher percentage of that tip if you do give it to us. But why is that there? Well, it's quite simple. This book we're going through here tonight is a nice, soft, little 286 pages long. And of course, our streams are usually for about 2 hours. So the first hour is on me, but if we can get to $75 in tips, we'll go past 2. If we get $150, we'll go all the way up to 3 hours. If we go above that, 4 hours, and if we reach $300, we'll be here all night. We'll be here till midnight. And if we finish the book, then we can do an AMA and we can just hang out and we can talk. So, if you want me to keep going, we're going to keep going. But I'm not going to try to skip around too much because I do want to kind of go through the game and really take a look at it and take a good look and see what we're doing here. That is fairly accurate, Frostjack. A big part of the reason why I picked it up, I did talk about this on the Q&A, Frostjack, so I'm not going to go into it too detail. But number one is I've come to respect the system a little bit more, and so enough that I'm interested to pick it up, even though horror is still not admittedly my thing. But the other thing is, it's like the number 1 or number 2 most popular role-playing game of all time. I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the community if I don't at least know how to play it. And I think that's where we kind of got to it. All right. So Fantasy Age, this is the 2nd edition core rulebook. We do have cover art here by Wayne Reynolds. I guess this guy just does everything. Sorry, I'm very thirsty. We've got, looks like, some kind of swashbuckling style, warriors battling against what appears to be snake people on some sort of cobblestone streets of some dilapidated fantasy city. And but one of them has a flaming sword, so there's at least something going on there. And again, we can see more of this art. This is the back cover, so let's kind of read through this so we can kind of get a sense for what we might be getting into here tonight. It says, leap into sword and sorcery RPG adventures with a Fantasy Age core rulebook. Powered by the popular adventure game engine, Fantasy Age 2nd edition is easy to learn, fun to play, and welcoming to new role players. Just once I want to find I guess that's Burning Wheel. What's the RPG that's like, this is not for beginners. This is for people who already know what they're doing, and we're not going to write a rule book and expect you to play this rule book for the next 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years, but 90% of it is written towards somebody who's never picked up a role-playing game before. Anyways, the Fantasy Age core rulebook includes these features. Simple character creation. We pick an ancestry, we pick a class, we pick a specialization, and then we jump into the action. So sounds like it's saying it's a 3-part character creation process. We'll look into that. Ancestry, class, specialization. Heroic stunts. The heart of the game is the stunt system, which brings dynamicism and drama to the table. Roll doubles on 3d6 to pull off unexpected moves in combat, cast more potent spells, perform amazing feats of physical and mental prowess, or even cut a rival down to size with a few clever words. So this is the sort of so-called stunt system that the adventure game engine is based off of. Basically, we're rolling 3d6. We get doubles. We get to maybe do a little extra. We have mighty magic, so magic is in this game. Themed spells. The 19 Arcana gives the mage a huge amount of flexibility. To get started, choose 2 Arcana, like Beast, Cold, Death, Earth, Fate, Fire, Healing, Protection, Mind, and Shadow. Okay, so you get to mix it. You kind of get like different domains of magic, and we add them together. GM guidance. If you are new to RPGs or have never GM before, the core rulebook breaks it all down. All right. Customizable rules. The GM can use optional rules for the campaign to better reflect the setting. Choices include the twin systems of peril and dare. All right, so there's a little bit of expanded scope here, optional rules, such as allowing for dramatic swings, some horror rules if you want to add more sinister elements, and a fortune system that can turn health into a combination of resilience and luck that can influence outcome. It also introduces a campaign setting of its own called the Stranger Shores. It includes a starting adventure that is inside that, and so much more. All right. Who wrote this thing? All right. Well, we got a couple names here that I really, really respect. Steve Kenson is, of course, a venerable game designer. Most famous for me, wrote Mutants and Masterminds. Chris Promise, also another juggernaut of the industry of Green Ronin. And we can see here, Owen, I don't know Ian or Malcolm, but Owen K. Stevens is another game designer who has worked in the past with Paizo, but also has worked with, the name forgets me, but he used to work with Stan Brown in a fun little publishing company that did a lot of work with Mahavik Press, and I really like some of the stuff that they did. So it's a pretty good team. So here is our table of contents. All right, we've got our character creation section. Then we have our basic rules. Then we have options for our characters, equipment for our characters, magic for our characters, and stunts. So the first 6 chapters up to page 160 look to mostly be about our character and what our character is up to. And then we get into the GM section. And again, unless we probably make some of those tip goals, we probably will not make it up to these GM sections. But we have got the game master, mastering the rules, chases, hazards, horror, peril, daring, fortune. These are all the optional systems. Looks like there's a bit of a very small, but somewhat of a monster manual of a bestiary in here, along with rewards. Chapter 10 is all about rewards, so we want to make sure we definitely take a look at that. And then it gets into, again, the sort of one of the pre-included campaign setting and adventure. All right. Pretty good. All right. What is a role-playing game? Well, we know this. Yes. I think it was Rogue Genius or something Genius. That does sound correct. I'm not exactly sure if that's the truth. Dan, by the way, says, I will fight you. I think Burning Wheel is actually great for new players. It is bad for players who have a preconceived notion about what TTRPG should be. That's probably a fair statement. I still think it's a little chonky. All right. So, says this is a sword and sorcery game. And we take on the personas of warriors, mages, counselors, and rogue in a fantastical world. So, sounds like it's a sort of a trad, fantasy game where we're, facing down a murderous ogre in ancient ruins or engaging in a duel of wits with a haughty noble, suggesting potentially a sort of social encounter system. So what is a role-playing game? Well, I think we all know what a role-playing game is here. We need to pick someone to be the GM, yada, yada, yada. Here is some information about what's different between first and second edition, but we can skip that because I don't know what that is. Here's what you need to do to play a role-playing game. You need to play your character. What do you do, and who are you? Oh, those are great questions. You should probably be answering those in all of your role-playing games. Then we've got a little bit about adventure, campaign, and settings, and an example of play, which I'm all going to skip because we kind of know what a group does here. So we're in here to get a first look at this. But again, this is that standard boilerplate stuff of, why and I've said this before, and I know that not every publishing group can afford to do this. I really wish that they made small, simple books for the newbie that maybe even included a stripped down version of the game. Not every single magic talent, not every single feat, not every single skill, just enough basics to kind of get your feet wet. And it can include all of this stuff that you need for somebody who's never touched a role-playing game before. The Pathfinder 2 beginner box set should have this kind of stuff in it. Maybe even more detailed examples of play But then when you give me the hardback book, it's like, I just give me the just give me the game, you know. That's kind of one of the things that I think I get a little bit frustrated with at times. All right, the group dynamic. But much of this book is focused on teaching you the rules and how to make a character, but it is important to remember that role-playing is a group activity. It's important to know. It's something I talk about a lot. This is talking about it being in an adventuring group. You know, make sure you have at least one of every character class within the group. Make sure you work together. You know, basic, fantastic, you know, information. Oh, I cut the chat off. Okay. Thank you, Isaiah. Hey, Whipplestein. But what is a role-playing game, and how will we ever know? Well, you can go buy the beginner box set, and that can answer what but you know what you want to know, Whipplestein. But for me, who's played a lot of these games, I don't need to know what a role-playing game is, and if it's a manual that I'm going to be referring back to again and again and again and again, I'd rather it not be you know, in it every single time. But thank you for the super chat. All right, basic game concepts. Before we dig in, a couple things that we need to know. You make a character who may be very much like you or be extremely different. We all understand this. You could pick a human or any of a different adventures. Okay, well, we know the game uses these concepts called characters. We all know this. The game has levels. Your character begins at level 1 as an inexperienced adventurer. By surviving encounters and overcoming challenges, your PC gains experience points and rises in levels. You may eventually make it to level 20. Okay, so by default, it looks like we have a very strong sort of Dungeons and Dragons D20 DNA here in the form of, and now we already know we're rolling 3d6, so obviously it's not D20, but it's level-based, experience-based, goes to 20. We have 9 ability scores, such as intelligence and strength. With each one has a numerical rating, with a 1 being the average. So it looks like we don't have ability scores. We essentially just have abilities, and they are essentially just a modifier. Whenever you want to do something, so this is like the core probably element of the game. Whenever we want to do something, the GM may call for an ability test. This is a roll to determine success or failure. Roll 3 6-sided dice, add the results together, and add or as I mentioned, subtract if it's negative, the appropriate ability. This generates a result which you want to be as high as possible. So high numbers are good. We roll 3d6 and we're adding 1. Now, of course, 3d6 generates numbers from 3 to 18, so it's fairly close to a d20, but of course, it also greatly reduces the variance. 3d6 is going to produce a lot of 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s, 12s, and very few 3s, 4s, 17s, and 18s. So this really, it has almost the same number range as a d20, but it is a much different distribution. It is a much more bell curve shaped resolution. We may have other bonuses or penalties. So mechanics are going to be able to give us other penalties or other bonuses. And once we know our result, the GM will let you know if it's a success or a failure and what happens. So it doesn't sound like there's any sort of partial success. It looks like it might just be pass fail. We also have a health rating, so hit points maybe. When damage is inflicted, this reduces health. If it reaches 0, your character may die. Okay, so not death at 0, but sounds like something bad does happen when we get to 0 health. So nothing too radical here. All right. George, we are happy to have you here. Yeah, we're glad to be back from Gen Con. It'll be fun. Xavion says, aesthetically, the book is giving me big D&D 3.5 vibes. Just the font, borders, backgrounds, and the like. I completely agree. I feel like this is an old friend, like nothing about this book is jarring to me. It feels like this is a book I've read a million times. So I definitely agree with this. All right. So far, nothing really too radical aside from 3d6. But again, that's really just a d20 with reduced variance. But here we go. Stunts. In an encounter, your character can perform stunts. If you roll doubles on a successful, only a successful, attack roll or ability test, this generates stunt points. And they're in quotation marks, so I guess they're not real. I don't know. I don't know why people put things into quotation marks when, no, like that's exactly what it produces. You can then use these points to pull off a number of special actions or maneuvers. Stunts are common enough to help keep combat dynamic and fun. There are also exploration stunts, which impact a group's traveling, especially through the unknown, ruins, or wilderness. Social stunts, which come into play when interacting primarily through conversation and discussion. And spell stunts, which let mages enhance their spells. Many stunts are available to any character, while other stunts are available for characters to select from their character class as they gain level. So what can we take from this? So we need to roll doubles. Well, we need to succeed. So that's kind of the first hurdle. But if we do succeed, we have to check for doubles. Now, I'm sure they might include the math on this, but I'm trying to think how common doubles are in 3d6. Obviously, in 2d6, 1 in 6 results is a double. So it's got to be better than that. So it sounds like you might be generating stunts. Oh, gee. Maybe like a third of the time? Does that maybe sound about right? I don't know. We'd have to do the math on it. But so it doesn't sound like it's going to be something that's super rare. It kind of sounds like it's fulfilling the role of feats, but instead of being something that you can always do, it's only something that's available to you occasionally. I like this because it definitely seems to put a little bit of more of emphasis on the dice, and there's sort of a distinction between just getting a hit versus getting a hit and a stunt. So I kind of like that. Although it's like I can't help but be like, there's an opportunity here where even if you failed, like I can't help but think of like Legend of the Five Rings, 5th edition, not 5th edition. Legend of the Five Rings, but Legend of the Five Rings, the 5th edition of that game, because in that game you can either generate successes or opportunities, and because opportunities and successes are often on different faces of the dice, if your roll comes up that you didn't roll a lot of successes, aka you're not going to succeed, then by almost definition it means you rolled a lot of opportunities. So even though your character didn't succeed at what they were doing, they still got to do this kind of lateral opportunity that makes it feel like you had some impact on the game. I like the idea that even if your character rolled low and failed, but let's say you rolled double ones, you could still kind of get some sort of bonus or benefit, but apparently that is not what they do in this game, but we don't know yet. We're only on the beginning part of the game. The dice only uses D6. All right. Sometimes a D3, but that's just a D6, obviously anyways. 1d6, 2d6, 3d6. Oh. Okay. 3d6. If you are making an ability test, you must ensure that, I remember this now from Dragon Age, you must ensure that 2 of the dice are one color and the third is a different color. This third die, this different die, is known as the stunt die. And it's important. The results of the stunt die can determine your level of success and allow you to perform stunts. Okay. Interesting. Isaiah says, well, because it has to be a success, it'll be less than it sounds. On 3d6, you've roughly a 31% chance of rolling doubles. I said a third. I wasn't that far off. Yeah. All right. Where next? All right. Maybe I'm thinking of Dragon Age. Yeah, Ben, that this is definitely, you're definitely thinking probably of Dragon Age, because Dragon Age, I definitely remember having this different color die and using that. So it looks like maybe we roll doubles, and if we roll doubles, it's the value of that third die that determines how many stunt points, and again, I'm going to use quotation marks because they did, that determines what we can do. All right, adventure awaits. Fundamentally, let's just, before we get, I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this. Do I like this mechanic? And I think the answer is yes, because I like game mechanics where there's sort of a multi-step process of deciding what you're going to do, rolling your dice, and then seeing what the dice roll resulted in and having some ability to sort of modify or take an additional action after the fact. So I really like, Year Zero has this concept of pushing your roll. Any game, my understanding is Call of Cthulhu has a similar concept. I really like games that do that. And so while I don't know that this is 100% the same thing as that, I like that they're using the dice for multiple elements rather than just binary success fail. So Ben says gamble mechanics rock in RPGs. Yeah, I actually have come like 100% online with this. I think one of the best things that you can do is let players roll randomly, but then when they fail, again, I like to ask my players questions. And, one of the questions I want to ask them is, how badly do you want this? And how much are you willing to risk or pay in order to find success? Show us who your character is and maybe show us a little bit about who you are as a player. Drive it like you stole it and, go big or go home. And I think that's the kind of style of play that I really, really like. So, all right, here's our player section. This dwarf is messing these people up. Looks an awfully like Magic Missile. But we'll get to there. 9 easy steps to make a character. This is your alter ego inside of the world of perilous adventure. Yep, don't make a character you hate. Cool, good advice there. All right, so what is our 9 steps? Here we go. First, we have to choose a character concept. All right. Number 2 is to determine our abilities. These are our character's core physical and mental attributes. Remember, there's 9 of these. Then we choose an ancestry. We can be a Drakh, probably the ubiquitous dragon man characters. Dwarf, elf, gnome, goblin, halfling, human, orc, or wild folk. Okay. This passes the no completely off the wall weird shit ancestry test. So Derek is at least happy there. Determine your social class and background. Your background is what you did before an adventure. They could lose me here. I hate most games with background systems bore me to tears. Traveler excluded. We choose a class. There are only 4 classes. Now, those of you who are fans of this show know that I've often talked about how one of my favorite things in 3rd edition D&D was the existence of the NPC classes. There was the warrior, the adept, and the expert. And I often said, that is all you really need to play this game. I think the cleric is an artifact of the past. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the class, and I think it's fun and right in the correct setting, but it feels, in my opinion, not right in a lot of fantasy settings. And I said, all you really need is the person who's good at fighting, the person who's good at magic, and the person who is good at, skills or doing things that aren't fighting or magic. And so that seems to be sort of the premise. My understanding is that in the 2nd edition of Fantasy Age, they added this 4th class, this envoy. So this is a new class, which is dedicated to social mechanics. We'll take a look. Then we pick our equipment. Then we calculate our defense and speed. Then we pick a name. And then we choose our goals and character ties. All right. So it says this is only going to take 39 pages, so that gives me some hope. All right. All right. Character concepts. Before you begin to sit down and play, you should learn a little bit about the setting you're going to be playing in. Fantasy Age can be used with a wide variety of settings. So again, this is a game that is trying to be generic enough to be used in a variety of different settings. So, it's basically saying find out what you're playing in and get a sense. Don't make a character that's going to be completely out of scope with that. So it's pretty good advice. One of the conceits of the game, as the game is telling you, this is what this game is about, is that your character begins as an unknown and struggling adventurer. You do not start as a crown prince. You do not start as an archmage. You must earn your honors through deeds, and you can be sure that there'll be a price. We'll see. So again, just, fun ideas for your character, ideas for what how your character came about and what they're good at. What is the kind of the basic gist of it? Nothing unique here. Yeah, exactly. No, no one unique thing here. Exactly. Let's see here. Do we have? I'm looking to see if we have a form fillable sheet. Doesn't look like it. It's kind of amazing nowadays that people can like make, make games and that not like, not like give people stuff that they need to actually play them. It's actually kind of wild that people do that in this day and age. You'd think you'd get destroyed for that. So I could be just not able to find it, but I'm going to mark off some points from them for not having a form fillable PDF. All right. Abilities. All right. Your character is defined by 9 abilities. It's a lot of ability scores. Accuracy, communication, constitution, dexterity, fighting. Interesting. Fighting is its own stat. Intelligence, perception, strength, and willpower. Okay. So I'm noticing that basically in D20 we would have the concept of probably like base attack bonus, but that's just sort of represented here by an ability, I think, would be my guess. Taken together, these map out your character's strength and weakness. You select abilities by assigning advancements to them, resulting in each one having a numerical range from -2 to +4. -2 is awful, +4 is outstanding, 1 is an average. Higher is better. We can increase them as we gain experience. All right. Accuracy is our physical precision and skill with finesse and ranged weapons. Communication is our social skills. Constitution is constitution. Dexterity, different from accuracy, it represents our agility, hand-eye coordination, and quickness. Fighting is our skill at fighting is our skill at combat with weapons such as axes and spears, whereas strength is our character's raw physical force. Intelligence is our education and smarts. Perception is our senses and our ability to interpret said information. And willpower is mental toughness and confidence. All right. So they kind of broke up some of the standard 6 stats here. Fighting being its own thing. So basically strength isn't to accuracy and to damage. All right. So all of our abilities start at 0, and we get 13 advancements to put in there. Nothing could go higher than 3, and we can lower them below 0. However, this does not grant you any extra advancements. Consequently, most players do not choose this option. All right, so pretty simple there. Alternatively, we can roll for our random ability scores. Cool that they give us this option. Note that determining abilities table is biased towards creating characters with heroic abilities, which is a 1 or higher in a world where the average person has a rating of 0. So that's kind of like a cool baseline, right? Like, even though they say like in this game, your character should think of 1 as being sort of the default or the average, but like for the normal, that's for an adventurer. For a normal person, it would be 0. Okay, nothing special here. Ability focuses. A focus is an area of expertise within the larger ability. Intelligence determines how smart your character is. A heraldry focus indicates a special knowledge of coats of arms and royal families. In game terms, if you have a focus, your ability score is effectively 2 higher when you work within your special abilities. At level 11 and up, the +2 bonus given by a focus may increase further, but you don't need to worry about this now. We'll pick focuses later on. So why the hell are you telling us about them now? Fantasy Age includes the following focuses. You may find new focuses in books. So at some point, we're going to get to pick some of these, which basically gives us a further +2 when we do them. Hopefully that's exciting because it seems really, really boring. Hey, your number's bigger. Snooze. Not impressed. Also, why are these, why are some of these have like 17 things in them and focuses, and then like willpower has like 4? That doesn't seem very fair. All right. So ability scores seem very boring. They seem pretty much just like a D20 system, where you have a stat, and instead of going from 3 to 18, hell, in Pathfinder 2 now, it just goes from basically -1 to 4. Yeah, it just seems like it's pretty basic there. And even these focuses seem like they're just telling us they add a +2. So hopefully we'll be corrected here, but we'll keep going on. Ancestry. We pick an ancestry. What do we get here? We get an ability focus. Okay. We get a special quality, such as a benefit, or something like dark sight or infravision. For talent, we gain a degree in a talent, starting with novice degree. This is a rare ancestry benefit. Most talent degrees come from your class and when you gain levels. Okay. These are possible benefits. You don't gain all of these. Or a weapon group. You can gain proficiency in a weapon group. Okay. So talents kind of probably sound like maybe they're like feats. And weapon group sounds like proficiency. So the game has proficiency as well. Okay. All right. So Drock is, yay, it's a lizard person. You get a focus, either intimidation as part of strength, or willpower as part of, or self-discipline, as part of willpower. You get dark sight, you can see in the dark. Your speed is equal to 10 plus your dexterity. I'm not really sure what that speed is rated in, but it is that. And you get 2 additional benefits from the Drock table. Selecting an ability, interesting, counts as both of your benefits. Alternatively, the GM may allow you to roll twice to gain 2 random benefits. So you can either pick one or you can roll twice. I like that. A little gambling. So you get some random abilities, which are basically mostly looks like they are a couple of ability bonuses, a couple of focuses, more ability bonuses. And we've got 2 things in here that are kind of standing out. We either get the ability to do a flame breath, or we can gain magical resistance. And by the way, we can see here a little bit of a preview of how this stunt die is going to work. Ancestry stunt, flame breath. You may spend 4 stunt points to immediately cast the novice fire arcana spell, Flame Blast. So basically it's like, the question of, hey, you've got a breath weapon. How often can you use this breath weapon? Is it once a fight? Is it once a day? Is it once every 10 minutes? No, it sounds like it's tied to your ability to generate a stunt, which means I just rolled, doubles, and I have at least 4 stunt points that I can then use to fire off a flame blast. So it kind of gives us an idea of how they might be balancing some of these things. All right. We got dwarves, a little bit slower, but they probably, they get ability focuses to constitution tolerance. They also get dark sight. So again, they get bonuses with axes and strength and con and smithing if they roll randomly. Nothing crazy here. I'm not really seeing anything here that's really all that different. Elf. Also, we're 3 for 3 with races that have dark sight. And it looks like most of these are pretty much the same. They either have weapon groups, ability bonuses, focuses, and there's usually like 1 or 2 extra abilities. So here's our gnomes. Not loving this art. Not loving this art, honestly. This art's a little better, but not my favorite. But this gnome art is bad. Do not like that at all. And also the visual inconsistency of the art is also kind of jarring. Like, that those goblins and those gnomes were hopefully made by different artists. And then we get goblins and we get halflings. All right. Oh, and of course humans. Orc. I don't know why, but this orc just looks like they took a human and gave him green skin and maybe made him a little bit bulkier and gave him a weird nose. It doesn't really look like an orc. She kind of looks like an orc to me. I don't know. He doesn't really look orcish to me. Obviously orcs can look differently in different books, but I gotta say, the cover art was pretty good, and who doesn't love a Wayne Reynolds book? But man, this art's not great. I don't love it. Not a fan. Just feels kind of flat. I don't know. But again, wild folk. So here's your furries. If you want to be a furry, there you go. And they just I like how they kind of just throw all of the animal people into one thing here. Beast folk, wild folk, cat folk, rabbit folk. They're just all wild folk. It's kind of, throw it into one. All right. Backgrounds. I like what they were trying to do here with the art. Like, were you a baker? Were you a queen or a princess? Even though I thought the game said that we couldn't be a queen or a princess. Were we some rich arc? The game said we could not be a prince or an archmage, and yet this is clearly showing some sort of prince or princess and archmage or archdruid or something. A little inconsistent there. What's going on? All right, step 4, backgrounds. Your character did not spring from nothing. Just as in real life, upbringing and circumstances can shape personality and attributes. This is determined by backgrounds. They determine what your character did or was trained to do before deciding on a life of adventure. Most of the time, I don't actually care what your character did or was trained to do. By definition, it shouldn't be that interesting. The whole part where you're an adventurer should be the interesting part of your character. By definition, the background was boring, and that's why you're not doing it anymore. So anyways, that's just me ranting about backgrounds. Don't get me wrong. See, the thing I like about backgrounds in say Traveler is you're generating, it's not a background generator. It's what adventures did you go on before the campaign even started? When we were playing Root, the using the backstory cards, that was us literally generating cool, fantastic adventures about our character. It wasn't about what did they do as a kid. I've never really cared about stuff like that. All right, backgrounds are broad by design. You have room to interpret them. You may choose a background that fits your character's concept, in which case you gain the social class listed for it. If you choose to do this, you get the average starting money rather than randomly determining your wealth. Alternatively, your GM may allow you to roll your background randomly. Determining a background this way requires 2 rolls. First, roll on the social class table, then roll on the appropriate background table. For example, if your character is middle class, you would roll a d6 on the middle class backgrounds. All right. So our social classes are outsider, lower, middle, upper. Again, this seems to be in direct contradiction to the game, which told us that our characters are, not wealthy. They're not, they're not super. I don't remember where it was, but they was trying to tell us your character came from nothing and they're kind of a scum and villainy, and now it's giving us these backgrounds that are oh, you came from wealth and power. Doesn't really seem to make much sense. Anyways, middle class, upper class. So on a roll of 1, a 6, a 5, it's random, but still. All right. So, you roll on one of these and then you roll right here. So you're kind of rolling a D66. You could be a criminal, an exile, a hermit, a pirate, or you could be a noble, even though the fucking game said we can't be a noble. All right. And then this is going to give us our choice of 1 focus. Again, which seems really boring. So, okay. Nothing here is really popping out at me. Okay. Jack likes the juxtaposition of the 2 fantastical characters right next to the baker. Well, I mean, the odds are just as good that your character will be a very successful middle class or upper class character as you would be a lower class or outsider character. But the good news is we'll be done here soon because no one seems to care about this game, and it doesn't seem to really be that exciting to me. So we might be able to wrap up a little early today. All right, we'll get through character creation. At least do that. All right, classes. If ancestry and background are where your character comes from, then class is what you've worked to become. Classes are both archetypes, defining the things that you're good at, but they are also frameworks for your character's advancement and development. In other words, classes are they're classes. They tell you what they give you, and they also tell you what you are. So again, nothing revolutionary here. Envoy, you're good at negotiation and working with others. If you want to cast spells, mage. If you want to be sneaky, rogue. If you want to fight, play a warrior. The classes are quite broad by design. I like this idea in practice or in theory. We'll see how they work it and do it in practice. But again, I fundamentally don't think we need all the class bloat that we get in games like D&D and Pathfinder 2. I think it's lazy. I think it's a great way to sell books. I think it's a great way to say, here's 2 more classes that you don't need. So, but is it, we'll see how well they do with it. All right, experience points. It looks like it's it's kind of linear, but 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, so on and so forth. 4,000, 4,000, 4,000. Okay. Each class will give us 4 primary abilities. We'll get 5 secondary abilities. We'll get our starting health or hit points. And we'll determine what weapons we know how to use. We'll also be provided with a variety of special powers, such as ability focuses and talents. Okay, let's talk about this. Gaining levels. Okay. Kind of all over the place. I don't know. It's weird that this is the class section, and now it's telling us about XP and levels, but all right. There are 2 ways to gain levels in Fantasy Age. First, the GM may simply elect to inform players when their characters advance a level. This is a major milestone or campaign event is reached, such as the end adventure or plot arc. All right. I don't really like milestone-based adventure, but, there it is. The other way is to advance through experience points, and they can award XP at the end of the session. When characters have enough experience, they advance to the next level. GMs can award more or less if they want to slow or accelerate advancement. All right. Pretty simple here. When you gain a level, you get a number of new abilities and resources as outlined by your class. Pretty standard D20 stuff there. You gain 1 ability advancement, 1 focus enhancement. So we get 1 advancement to an ability score. We get 1 focus advancement, which is one of those sub abilities. And we get 1 health advancement. You also get the class powers that are specified for your new level, which include defense, stunt, and talent advancements. Okay. Each time we gain a level, we get an ability advancement For lower ranked abilities, this directs into a direct increase. But as we grow more in power, it becomes more expensive. Okay, I was like, well, you could probably boost your ability scores up to 1 million for this. But as you go up above 5, it starts costing more. So from 6 to 8, it costs 2 advancements each. And for abilities from 9 and higher, it is 3 advancements to keep going up. So it becomes much more expensive in order to keep your ability score super, super, super high. So definitely diminishing returns there. Each level gives you a +1 bonus to your defense. So basically, every level, you're adding 1 to your armor class, or to your defense, I should say. You also get a new focus advancement. When you gain an even numbered, you must choose a focus from one of your primary abilities. And when you gain an odd number, choose a focus from one of your secondary abilities. Okay. You get more hit points, called health. It's D6 plus con at levels 2 through 10, and just your constitution at levels 11 and 20. There's kind of a tip of the hat there to first edition style D&D, where your characters mostly stopped gaining hit points after around 9th or 10th level. So there suggests that that does suggest that the game doesn't have that same superhero scaling like we would see in D&D and Pathfinder 2nd edition, which is kind of interesting. We get all basic stunts, but we can learn a new one from an advanced stunt table every time we gain an advancement. Whenever we gain a talent, we become a novice in a new talent, or we gain a new degree in a talent we already have, going from novice to expert or expert to master. All right, so talents themselves can be taken, and then there's 3 levels of proficiency with each of them. We'll see what those do for us. And lastly, we gain 1 specialization at level 1 and specialization advancements as we continue to gain levels. Whenever you gain a specialization advancement, you become a novice in a new specialization, or we gain a new degree going from novice to expert or expert to master in an additional specialization. Okay, so we have focuses, we have talents, we have stunts, and we have specializations. It seems like there's a lot of stuff going on there. Whenever you gain a specialization advancement from your class, you may, if you prefer, take a degree in a new regular talent instead. So specializations sound like kind of like feats. Okay. I know that this is the social class, but I'm going to skip it because we don't really have like a whole like easy thing for it, like an easy comparison. So I'm going to go to something that like we can more like sort of kind of dive into here. So the mage is our spellcaster. So remember, there's 9 ability scores. So their primary ability scores are accuracy, intelligence, perception, and willpower. Their secondary abilities are communication, constitution, dexterity, strength, and fighting. They start with this much health, and they know how to fight with their hands and with weapons. At first level, you get all of these things. You get Arcane Blast. If you are holding your arcane device, which they have not defined. Okay. But we can assume as some sort of wand or orb or ring, you get to make a ranged attack that deals damage. This is like a normal range attack, but the attack roll is an accuracy arcane blast. So this is like our default at-will spammable attack. It has a range of 16 yards. Well, here's an RPG system that uses yards. Oh, here's arcane device. There we go. It could be a wand, a holy symbol, an amulet, yada, yada, yada. If you lose it, you can attune a new one by spending 1 hour and 5 magic points. But not a lot of mechanics here. Magic training. This is the most important of the mage's powers. It allows a mage to cast the spells that are the hallmark of the class. You begin with novice degree in 2 of the spell talents. Each novice degree grants you 2 novice spells. Therefore, you begin with 4 novice spells, 2 from each talent. You will gain more spells whenever you gain spell talent advancements. I was going to say, how do we cast spells? Well, magic points. You can use magic points to power your spells. You start with a number of magic points equals to 10 plus your willpower plus d6. It is necessary to keep track of your current magic points. This is a measure of how much magical power is at your command at any given time. You regain them through rest and meditation, and you gain more as you continue to gain levels. From levels 2 to 10, you gain willpower plus d6 magic points whenever you gain a new level. And from levels 11 to 20, you gain only your willpower in magic points, because increasing your power at higher levels is not as easy. So again, seeing that after about level 10, the power gain that your character gained does diminish. You get less hit points, you get less magic points. I know there are people out there that really hate the Vancian system, which is fine. I'm not a big fan of it myself at times. And they always act like MP is somehow so better. And I go, MP, Matt, is just it's the same thing as Vancian. It's sure, it's a little bit more flexible, but what is your problem with Vancian? Is it that like you can't be like, you have to actually think and choose spells? Or is it that your problem is that your, wizard can run out of things to do? In which case, the MP system does not fucking help you. I never understood why people like magic points or mana point systems so much. I personally don't. I didn't like psionics in 3rd edition. I didn't like PowerPoints. So I am not a fan of magic points. Anyways, to me, it's like the same thing as Vancian, potentially. All right. You may pick one specialization allowed by your class. See Chapter 3, Character Options, and gain the novice degree of its specialization talent. So that's that first tier. For this specialization, you do not need to meet the requirements, though it must be available to the mage class. Specializations help you customize your character and give them a theme. Okay, so this is kind of like our subclass. Are we a mage that is a crime lord? Okay, that's weird. Are we a mage that is an elementalist? Are we a miracle worker? Are we a sword mage? Are we a necromancer? Some of these don't seem like they fit. Crime lord and mariner pirate. Why are those on here? How is that tied to the mage theme? In addition, we become a novice in one of the following talents: surgery or chirurgery, linguistics, or lore. And again, I think these are like the talents, like the feats. Even numbered levels at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, in case you didn't know what an even number was. You gain the following about. You get an ability advancement, which has to be on a primary ability score. You get some spell advancement, and you get an ability focus from your primary abilities. And at odd levels, you gain an ability advancement in one of your secondary abilities. I like the kind of mix back and forth. That's kind of interesting. And you get a specialization talent and a secondary focus. So you're getting something every level. Again, you're either picking up new focuses or you're picking up new spell advancements. We also get some static bonuses at level 6. We get a defensive bonus. We get a damage bonus. Our range becomes 24 yards at level 8. Our focuses now become +3 instead of +2. So numbers go burr, big numbers. Stunt die to damage. You may add the value of your stunt die to your attack test when inflicting damage against a creature. And at level 20, you have an epic mage. Pick one type of stunt. You get a +1 stunt bonus when performing stunt bonuses of that type. So your capstone isn't really even that big of a huge thing. And I think that's it for the class. I appreciate that the class fits on 2 pages. I like the back and forth. I like that it kind of keeps power creep in check. But I don't know that I've seen anything here that makes me feel like this is makes it feel like this is any sort of I get that we're going through different motions, but I feel like we're still going to arrive at sort of the same place. So it's 8:00. It doesn't look like we're going to make our tip goal, so we're not going to go past 9. So rather than focus on all the different character classes, which I imagine we can, imagine what they're going to gain. They're probably fairly similar in structure. I want to skip ahead to like the stunts and the talents, because I think that is going to kind of really decide what we're going to do here. Equipment, I imagine, is just the same as D&D. Yep, backpack, water skin. You could start with more money based off of your social class, and we can buy stuff, crossbows and bolts and arrows. We have our defense in speed. So defense is how hard it is for us to be hit. Our defense is 10 plus dexterity plus a shield bonus. So interesting. It seems like armor is not part of defense. So maybe armor is more of like an ablative damage reduction. Got it. And then speed is determined how many yards you can move in a single move action, which is based off of your ancestry and your dexterity. And armor can reduce that. Okay, so everything is in yards. And I think we saw that most of those ancestries had like right around 10 yards as the average. So 30 feet, which is the same as it is in, 3.0 or almost essentially the same as it is in Pathfinder 2. We pick a name. We don't need to worry about that. Okay. Step 9 is to create goals and ties. But is this just fluffy bullshit time? Your character can have any number of goals. Try to come up with 3 short and long-term goals. Okay. Ties with other party members. And that's it. Okay. So it has a completely fluff. You should make your character interesting, and they should want to do things. They included that as part of the character creation process. Okay, I guess, even though it means nothing and doesn't seem to matter, but maybe it will. I don't know. But right now in the character creation system, it is not telling us that this means anything other than being a generically good idea that the game designers would hope that you would do. I mean, the point seems to be a generic fantasy. Complaining about that feels like complaining that GURPS is too generic. Xavian, you're absolutely correct about that. But what I'm trying to say is there something that, most of us are playing Pathfinder 2 or we're playing D&D, so which is fine. Those are fairly generic fantasy games as well. Why would I pick this game system over one of those generic game systems that kind of probably everybody knows and everybody's playing, right? There's obviously a switching cost. There's a acquisition cost in money. There's time. There's getting a whole new group of players. So like, what is it this game is offering that makes it such a compelling choice over, say, Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder 2? Because that's who you're trying to, that's who you're trying to fight against. That's who you're trying to beat. Save versus. Don't know if Derek mentioned it. I'm coming late, but a dev posted that you roll doubles on 3 dice about 40% of the time. So it doesn't happen every roll, but enough to keep it interesting. Right. But you also have to succeed. So even if you roll doubles on 3 dice about 40% of the time, I don't know what your success rate is in this game, but let's pretend that your success rate is, 50%. Then you're rolling doubles and getting a success only 20% of the time. So that's significantly less. All right. Basic rules. So we've got our character made. Right. Rolling double ones counts as a double, but it's probably not going to help you. I'm assuming that, the DCs are, unless you're really, really, OP, I guess, and have a lot of points. All right. Practical advice on being a player, but most of it concerns rules, how to find out what happens when chance and other special circumstances influence the hero's path. All right. I did download, even though it was not form fillable, I did download a character sheet. So this is our character sheet. We've got our character name, our social class, our standing, our class, our level, speed, defense, experience. We've got our 9 ability scores here. what weapon groups we are proficient with, what melee weapons and ranged weapons we have. Hey, look, this one is form fillable. Cool. Oh, nope. Only parts of it are form fillable. That is very, very strange. All right. Well, 2 parts of this PDF are form fillable. I take back what I said. Spells, relationships, magic points, equipment, magical details, wealth, and favorite stunts and class stunts. All right. Moving back to what we got here. Basics of play. You need a character sheet. You need 3d6, one of which should look different, and something to take notes with. You might need paper and pencil. Some groups use miniature figures and maps to note where their characters are, but you can play Fantasy Age perfectly well without using them by imagining where characters are what some might call theater of the mind. So it says, see miniatures, battle maps, and VTTs later in the chapter for optional rules. So the default is theater of the mind. It is not using minis. In fact, it's actually a optional rule. Spare coins, dice, and scrap paper can always be employed for a rough sense of where everyone and everything is, which is something that I like to do when I play 13th Age, which plays in a theater of the mind way, but I'll still use minis. We just use them in a very vague way. We don't count squares. I think there's that kind of in between ground, which I'm a really big fan of, which is using miniatures to sort of be more representational, or sort of an abstract representation of, okay, all these people are in one big melee cluster over here, but the mage is over here by this pillar. We don't worry about the exact distances, and we don't worry about, precise ranges, but it's more so that we can all kind of clearly identify where everyone roughly is. I like that style. I use it a lot when I play 13th Age. It's strange. The GM can look at your character sheet at any time, but the other players normally don't need to look at your sheet. And their PCs acting in the world not only don't know what's on your character sheet, but know nothing of rules and numbered ratings. Okay. This is the divide between player knowledge, what you know about the rules and anything you might have found out about the adventures outside of the game world, and character knowledge, which is limited to what the hero you play has experienced in the fictional world. All right. All right, we play adventures. We have to act in character. The scenes. We have action encounters where we defy danger. They might be battling foes. We might be escaping a building. Exploration encounters, such as puzzles, searching a grisly sacrificial altar for clues, overcoming hazards. Got it. Social encounters. So they do kind of formally define these as social encounters. Interrogating a sly pirate, blending in at a cult ritual. Each type of encounter has different challenges and rewards. Some require a lot of dice rolling, while others don't need any. Oh. So yeah, one player may do that. One player may not have to do that. All right. The core system. 3d6 plus ability plus focus. So remember, focuses are those like sub ability scores that add 2. 3d6, add them together. Step 2, add an ability. You always roll 3 dice when taking an ability test. 2 dice of one color, 1 die of another. This visually distinct die is the stunt die. It has several uses. It is used to generate stunt points, to measure degrees of success, and to break ties. When doubles come up on certain successful tests, this generates SPs. By doubles, we mean when you roll the same number on 2 of your 3 dice. If your roll succeeded in the first place, you could then use stunt points to pull off special maneuvers or earn extra benefits above and beyond simple success. I wonder if stunt points accumulate. We'll have to take a look at those. Stunt points are often used in combat encounters to keep the fights dynamic and fun, but you can also use them in exploration and social powers. Okay. So more or less, we're looking at ability. We're rolling 3d6. We're adding an ability. We're adding a focus if we have it. So pretty simple. We have to compare it to the target number, or it's an opposed roll. So this is, again, something that Pathfinder 2 chose to go away from it tries to avoid doing it. Basically doesn't have opposed rolls. And I kind of hate opposed rolls, but well, that's just kind of me. Target number. The GM sets it. Here we go. Routine to epic. I like that they give you like what modifier has a 50% chance and what modifier has a 90% chance. It's kind of an interesting way to sort of get a gut feeling for what you want. You know, I would probably just use these two tables to sort of generate like, is this something that I feel like the character, but again, it's like, is this something the character, I feel like a character would, who's that level could be able to do this almost every single time. Okay. So I'll make this formidable 17. Pretty cool. Opposed rolls sound like a, you know, as it would, you roll, they roll, whoever has a higher. And it does say that the stunt die breaks ties. I wonder if the GM rolls in this game. Probably. Maybe. All right. We have testing and time. Each test might take a couple seconds to several hours. Makes sense. You commonly roll tests when you initiate an action. Sometimes you roll them as a reaction to resist something. So they're kind of like saving throws too. So you notice we didn't see any saving throw stats here. So, you know, these 9 abilities, along with any stunts, basically, I'm sorry, not stunts, specializations. Or I'm sorry, focuses. I eventually was going to get it right. There's only so many things in the game. The abilities and the focuses basically act as sort of everything. They act as skills. They act as saving throws. They act as attack rolls. So that is something that I think I like. I like that it's just kind of one mechanic to literally rule them all. I think that's pretty interesting. In a sense, 5th edition kind of does the same thing because their saving throws are just strength, dex, int, con, wiz, charisma. And you either have proficiency and you get to add your proficiency bonus, which is the same thing basically as here with the focus, except instead of a skill, you would have athletics, which you would get to add your proficiency bonus to your strength check. Here they call it a focus and you're adding it to your strength check. So it's the same basic idea. Although I think I like that in 5th edition, actually. I'm a big fan of that. All right, degrees of success. Most of the time, you only need to know if you succeeded in your ability test. However, it is important to know how well you succeeded. This is one of the uses.
Bennett tipped $100. Coke next. PLS. Not a super chat. I know. Sue me.
All right. Thank you, Ben, for that. A very generous Call of Cthulhu. And of course, what Ben was referring to is that he doesn't actually want this to go onto this. He wants it to go onto the other thing. So I am going to manually move it over. So there we go. So Call of Cthulhu has successfully mapped out, and we'll be doing a Call of Cthulhu first look here in the next couple weeks. So we'll be getting ready for that. Look forward to doing that. I think that'll be a fun and interesting one. We'll definitely be settling in for that. So thank you for that, and I look forward to getting into that. So thank you, Ben. All right, moving on. Actually, you have to tell me, Ben. You know what, Ben? We'll discuss because I want to make sure that we get through all of the best parts. So like we might have to do like an annotated version of this because I also got the investigator book. So I'm not sure like which one I should actually go with. So you may have to give me some like an outline, like a core syllabus that I need to go through to make sure I'm getting the correct experience. All right. So we have degrees of success, and we can use this using the stunt die. If your character is level 6 or higher and you have the focus associated with the test, you can add the focus bonus to the stunt die when determining the degree of success. The higher the number, the more impressive your success. Okay. So we get 2 resolution mechanics in one, which I like. A 1 on the stunt die means you barely pulled it off, while a 6 means you did it flawlessly. Note that if you fail the test, the result of the stunt die is irrelevant. It's like I want that to be not that so bad. I want it to be like, hey, you fail, but your stunt die was a 6. So it's like, I'm going to give you almost everything you wanted. But any case. None of the benefits should be quite as good as anything offered by Stunts, and your GM should tell you what they are. So it's kind of more of a feeling or a role play. I don't think it's really a mechanical thing, but it is kind of an interesting idea. So for testing, we can just make simple tests, a basic test against one another. We also have advanced tests, which sounds like it's kind of more of like a skill challenge type system where you're accumulating successes, which is covered in Chapter 8 of the game rules. But all you need to know is that you'll be making multiple rolls against a test number, and each time you succeed, you add your degree of success to that from prior rolls. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. If you beat the threshold, then you get to add whatever was on that stunt die as sort of like the progress points or the clock ticks, right? Or the victory points. I like that. That's kind of it's like the damage that the check does. I think that's kind of fun. I don't mind that. Cooperation, something I'm always interested about. Because I like games that really make cooperation easy and rewarding, but not automatic, because that way there's a cost to doing it, but also not everybody's just spamming die rolls all the time. Characters may work together to achieve faster results. This is not possible in action time, where everybody is close times are checked. The effects of cooperation depend on the task. It's apparently covered in the GM rules, so we won't get to cooperation. The effects of cooperation depend on the task. Sometimes you need a minimum number of people to get anything done. Sometimes many hands make light work, and sometimes it falls in between. All right, we have more stuff about time here. Real time. This just feels so random in the middle of the basic rules section to just start talking about real time, action time, narrative time, especially since they just mentioned action time for the first time. And it's like, why wouldn't they talk about this before they did that? It just seems a little bit. GM tracks time. Okay. Action time is combat time. 15-second increments. Don't mind that. So-called rounds. So there are 4 rounds in a minute. We roll for initiative. Oh, I hate initiative. Simple dexterity initiative test with no target number. The GM does roll for every major NPC and every group of minor NPCs. Initiative rolls never generate stunt points. The GM then compares the test results of all the characters and arranges them in an initiative order list. I mean, to be fair, this is what D&D does, this is what Pathfinder 2 does, and I fucking can't stand it. So this is me rolling my eyes, not necessarily at the game. It's just me rolling my eyes at turn-based initiative based off of die rolls. Yada, yada, yada. You could take a major action or a major and minor action, or 2 minor actions, and then your turn is over. I'm assuming a major action is like attack or cast a spell, and minor action might be like move or manipulate and draw something out of your backpack. A major action is a focused effort. A minor action is not as involved as a minor action. We have free actions. We have reactions. Major actions. We can charge. We can defend. All out defense. Man, it really does feel like a lot of this stuff is like copied over from D20. Like, I think Dragon Age came out during the 3.5 era. I don't think it was 4th edition. And I can just total defense in 3rd edition. Now, again, not Pathfinder 2, but in Pathfinder 1 or 3rd edition, total defense gave you a +4 dodge bonus to your AC. Charge let you attack, move and attack with a bonus, to your attack roll. So it is kind of interesting, how that is working. There was some sort of all-out attack option. Maybe that's for Mutants and Masterminds, which, to be fair, was Green Ronin. But anyways, I just noticed that there's a lot of stuff here that feels like it's just kind of porting over from D20. Everybody can heal. That's interesting. A character cannot benefit from another heal action until they take additional damage. Okay, interesting. You can make a melee attack. You can make a range attack. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Interesting. Okay, stunt attack. Instead of simply trying to damage an opponent, you can focus on a specific action stunt, like attempting to subdue an enemy with a hold. Roll an attack as usual, and a successful attack awards you 2 automatic stunt points of a type appropriate for the attack, but it inflicts no damage. If you roll doubles, you earn stunt points equal to the stunt die result or 2 stunt points, whichever is more. If your score doubles, you may choose a stunt that damages your opponent, but the base attack still inflicts 0. Interesting. So this is kind of like if you want, I feel like this is like, you can't trip in this game because it's probably a stunt, but if you like want to go for the trip, you go for this stunt attack. And as expected, minor actions are things like move, like a little aim, little keep your guard up. So it's like a minor bonus to defense, minor bonus to accuracy. Prepare, which totally looks like ready, and it is. Ready, which is not ready, that's prepare. Ready means pull out a new weapon or a new item. This is interesting. Stand fast. You brace yourself to counter your foe's tricks and tactics until your next turn when an enemy wants to affect you with basic combat stunts or other stunts that would move or injure you. They must spend 1 stunt point to get past your guard before spending additional stunt points on these stunts. Interesting. I kind of like that. That's kind of a cool way. Again, I like resource mechanics, and I like that these stunt points sort of generate these resources kind of in situ, right, as you're going through there. I like the can't heal until hurt again thing in theory, but then you have cheesy pricks who will gently stab themselves and heal more than they hurt themselves. Yeah. You know, it's funny that you say the remedies of tracking which wounds are new versus old, just bleh. One of my favorite systems, and it's totally unplayable, but one of my favorite games is Hackmaster 5th edition. And what in that game, anytime you take damage, there's a big box which shows the wound, and you write down how much damage you take, right, in Hackmaster. So if you got hit for 6 damage, you would write down 6. And then if you got hit for 5 damage, you wouldn't erase the 6 and write 11. You would write a 5 next to it. So you have a 6 and a 5. If you got hit for 1 damage, you would write 1. If you got hit for 20 damage, you write 20. Now, to be fair, the total damage that you have on you is all of those wounds added up. So if that exceeds a certain value, your character is in trouble. But what's cool about the game is each wound heals 1 hit point per day of bed rest. So what that means is if your character took 20 damage in the form of 20 separate 1 hit point or 2 hit point wounds, aka scratches, right? They took 20 damage because they got 1 damage, 1 damage, 2 damage, 1 damage, 2 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage, 2 damage. They would have taken 20 damage, but that would all be healed in a day or 2 because each of those 20 different wounds or 18 different wounds would each tick down by 1 each day. On the other hand, if your character got hit with 1 attack that did 20 damage, that would take 20 days of rest before all of that damage was taken off of you, because that represents a much more significant wound that is going to be with you for a very long time. So it kind of really makes it's not just about an aggregate amount of damage. It's also sort of how each wound matters. And it's kind of an interesting system. Very, 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 very fiddly. Absolutely nightmare to track. But, that's the price we pay for simulation. All right. Combat. We've got difficult terrain. We might have to make movement tests. We make attacks. We pick a target. There's a range. Again, I'm trying to get to like the stunts and stuff because I want to get into this. How much damage do we do with these things? Once you hit an opponent, you inflict damage. Unless you're performing a special move, like the stunt attack, which we knew did not perform damage. It just gave you 2 stunt points. Your damage roll determines if you struck a telling blow or one that was glancing and ineffectual. Armor is important here as it protects the wearer from damage. Roll your weapon's damage and add any relevant modifiers, such as from talents or powers. Add your strength ability to damage with fighting-based attacks, and your perception ability to damage with accuracy-based attacks. Cool. I like that. And again, you're subtracting the armor rating. So shields and dexterity make you harder to hit. armor absorbs damage, and I like that. Note that if your opponent is well armored, you may hit but inflict no damage. Okay. So you get an example of here. They punch with a D3. They get a D3, get a 2. They add their perception for a 3. They get a 5. The footpad is wearing light leather armor, which has an armor rating of 3. So the total damage is 2. 2 plus 3 equals 5. Minus 3, back down to 2. Big fan of Armor's DR. Happy to see it. If I ever made a sort of traditional fantasy RPG game system, I would totally use armor as damage reduction. Big fan. We do have some damage types. Normal damage is blades and arrows. Penetrating damage ignores armor rating. Interesting. It comes from special weapons, hazards, and ability. Very few things reduce penetrating damage. Okay. One of the fun things I like about armor as damage reduction is that you can have this concept of, arm AP for Warhammer 40K terms, armor penetration or penetrating damage. Big fan of that. We get cover. Cool. Awesome. I'm a big fan of, looks like they don't use cover and concealment, kind of fall into the same areas, and I'm a big fan of that. I really like when those things get all combined. 4th edition, by the way, did this. Cover and concealment were just bonuses to defense. There was none of this. Watching people play Pathfinder 2, especially in Northern Reaches, when there is a lot of mischance going on, darkness, mist, invisibility, concealment, mirror image, you name it. The fact that you have to generate an additional D percentage roll on, or I guess it's a D20 roll because it's a flat check on every single die roll is outrageous. It's outrageous. The Game Master can also assign bonuses and penalties to the attack rolls to reflect the circumstances of the encounter. So, going back again to the 3E, GM's best friend, right? Sometimes you might just add 1 or 2 depending on the situation. So it can be anywhere from -3 to +3. And again, they give you an example here, but I like the idea of just really quickly as a GM, it's not something that is hard and fast. It's a general sense of being able to just say, yeah, you know what, you're in a really bad shape. You're being attacked. You're overwhelmed. It's a starry, it's a blizzard. -2, -3, and different GMs might rule differently in different circumstances, but in general, we're going to be on the same page. And I think that this kind of approach to gaming is very good. Here come the conditions. We're going to skip these because there's just a lot of these. And there seems to be a fair amount of them. Most of these look like they are kind of standard D20 stuff. Blinded, confused, deafened, frightened, prone, stunned, helpless, scarred. Cool. All right, if you go to 0 hit points, nothing can reduce you below 0. Anything that drops you below 0 is 0 instead. A further injury might inflict a coup de grace. You cannot be at 0 health without gaining a defeat condition, which renders you vulnerable to coup de grace. When your character drops to 0, they take a defeat condition of the attacker's choice, subject to the GM's approval. They can make you dying. They can make you helpless. They can make you unconscious. And then the coup de grace isn't just killing them. You can coup de grace to capture somebody, to kill them, or inflict the scarred condition on a fallen foe. So that's pretty cool. And they do have rules that for minions and stuff like that, they can just be instantly killed. All right, so basic D20 stuff, but a little bit extra rules there. Let's do some stuff here. We got rules for attacking objects, combat stunts. All right, here we go. All right, combat is more than just 2 fighters taking turns whacking each other. A good fight should be dynamic and feature a lot of movement and action. I agree. I like a certain style of swashbuckling gaming, or I want, ranks and flanks. I want like squad based, sort of grim tactical phalanx style combat. Like those are the two styles I like, and I don't really like anything in between. The full list of combat stunts, which include advanced stunts usable by members of certain classes, can be found in Chapter 6, Stunts. Basic stunts can be found there as well. The following is a quick rundown of how stunts work. In combat, you gain stunt points in the following circumstances. From doubles, whenever you succeed on an attack roll or basic test and any 2 of your 3 land on the same number, you gain stunt points equal to the number on the stunt die. This happens even if the stunt die was one of the matching dice. If you do a stunt attack, you get 2 or the stunt die, whichever is greater. And special effects, relationships, ancestries, and advancing might all give you stunt points. And then what can we do with these stunt points? Well, we can see here, we can boost, and we get a +1 bonus per stunt point spent to your first test on your next turn. So this seems like the most generic, like give me a bonus into next turn. You can quickly reload your weapon. You can move after your attack for each stunt point you spend. You can disarm your opponent for 2. You can grapple them for 2. You can knock them prone for 2. So a lot of the things that in 3rd edition we would do as sort of a grapple check, or even in Pathfinder 2nd edition, that we would do a grab, a trip, right? A shove. All of those things here, you don't actually kind of try to do those. You kind of just make a normal attack, and then if you roll doubles and you get these stunt points, then you can use them. Now, what if we get a lot of them? What if we get like 3 or 4? We can make a lightning attack to make an immediate second attack. That's pretty cool. We can seize the initiative. We can move to the top of the initiative order, which means you might go and then be able to go again, which is pretty crazy. And a lethal blow, which inflicts an additional 2d6 damage with your attack. And these are just things that everybody can do, which is interesting. Now, what I still don't know is, do stunt points accumulate? Or is it use them or lose them? I'm curious about that. Maybe Stunts will talk about this, but I haven't seen it yet. Now, Matthew is hitting on something that is absolutely true. And I was going to get to this, Matthew, but you brought it up, so I'll talk about it. I love Legend of the Five Rings 5th edition. I've talked about it many times on this channel. I think it's a great game. In Legend of the Five Rings 5th edition, when you roll your dice, these are special proprietary dice made by Fantasy Flight Games, you can get successes and opportunities, symbols on the dice. Successes are what you need in order to, accomplish the goal. Strike the opponent, convince the barkeep that, he should let you stay there for free or whatever. Opportunities are generally something that you have class abilities, techniques, katas, sujis, and also a long list in the book, which they added to every single time there's an expansion book, of you can use your opportunities to do this. And you are absolutely correct that this is one of the things that the people who play the game, not just me, but the wider community, talk about constantly as being something that can be a huge source of analysis paralysis. And I absolutely, fully dread, and I'm not saying this would happen, but one of the reasons I don't like initiative is because if I was playing Dungeon World and I described how, the drums in the deep and the characters start, kind of going we get ready, like the halflings fall back to the center of the tomb, and I pull out my 2 axes and I get my bow out, and then boom, the doors break open, orcs come screaming in, what do you do? I shoot an arrow, and okay, they're screaming in amongst you, hack and slashing, everybody roll, right? I want to move, that is an intense moment in the game. And I want to move right from that into the action. And I always feel like rolling for initiative breaks that. And so one of the last things that I would want to do is, if a character rolls doubles and they succeed, it's going to be a big moment. Everyone's going to be cheering. It's going to be a really cool moment at the table. It's going to feel dramatic. It's going to feel exciting. And the last thing that I want to have happen at that point is for somebody to start going to their character sheet and looking at the list of stunts that they have available to them, even if it's, a list of 5 or 6 or 7, they're still going to be like, okay, well, I could do this. Does anyone need healing? Should I knock him prone? Would that help anybody? Well, what kind of armor does he look like? Should I pierce his armor? Right? That's where it becomes really, really problematic.
Jason B tipped $10. This doesn't look like BG3 or reviewing NR errata. What are we even doing here?
Well, unfortunately, Jason, PG-3 is going to have to wait. Let me know in the comments, by the way. You know, everyone's been. I hate video games mostly. Not a fan of 5th edition D&D, but everyone's been playing this Baldur's Gate 3. They were playing it all. There were a lot of people playing it at Gen Con, and there was kind of a joke about us as me, Smith, Bob, or whatever, playing Baldur's Gate 3 on the channel, like maybe on Twitch or maybe on YouTube or whatever. Let me know in the comments. Is that something that you thought that you might like? Let's just see. But yeah, thank you, Jason. Yeah, that Northern Reaches errata I'm going to do after this. Actually, you're in luck because I was like, oh, maybe we might go to like 10 o'clock tonight or 11 o'clock tonight. But we are not going to be doing that. All right. So it looks like people are saying they do not stick around. They do not accumulate. So you need to get those on one roll. So, all right. A lot of information here about grenades. Here's that information about miniatures and battle maps. I am going to skip this. Okay, a lot of rules here for if you're using combat on a map. Flying characters, healing, either rest, magic, or the heal action. When you take rest, you can take a 5-minute breather. You get back 5 plus your constitution plus your level in health. You can only take 1 breather after an encounter. If you have a defeat condition at the end of the encounter, you can't take a breather. So very much a gamist thing here, where you're like, wait a second. So if I have an encounter and I take a breather, what you mean? I can never take another breather again until I have another encounter? What does that even mean? But I understand why they have it, and it's to solve the issue that happens from these games, aka Pathfinder 2, where everybody just heals up to full at the end of every fight, and no fight is significant. Because unless your character dies or receives some sort of permanent debilitating condition, it is more or less the assumption that you will be basically at full hit points for the next encounter. Ergo, there were no lasting effects of that encounter on your character other than you survived. So I do appreciate that. Light rest and total rest give you a lot more. Great stuff. When we talk about exploration encounters, you can have investigations. This is talking about sort of mysteries and structures, kind of like a little bit of a gumshoe element here with unlocks and clues leading to the next thing, and kind of creating a sort of skill-based investigation process, which kind of interesting. Social encounters. Here we go. We've got attitudes. We've got our different modifiers for communication skills, our reputation that can add +2 to -2. And we can, the simplest way to carry out social interactions is to decide what you want from the NPC and how you'd like to convince them to achieve it. After that, make an opposed test between your chosen strategy versus the NPC's willpower, who might apply a focus that the GM considers relevant. You might take a bonus or penalty depending on their attitude beforehand. Unless events in the story dictate otherwise, you can assume that NPCs begin with neutral. That makes sense. The GM can always decide that NPCs will never do certain things or will acquiesce to certain requests automatically. Otherwise, if you win the opposed test, the NPC basically acts in your favor, though not always exactly as you would prefer. Sometimes you want to... Now, the reason I'm going more deep into this is because, well, for all of it, stuff about the combat, stunt die outside of it, that's pretty much D20's fight, but social encounters are something that D20 does not have. If we want to flex our social muscles or get more involved into the intrigue, this is where detailed social interaction rules apply. The goal is to change an NPC's attitude to one where they feel inclined to do something in your favor. This may involve significant effort, so this system is better applied to major favors or long-term changes with an NPC. Here we go. I want to read this here. The rules in this section are normally only used by player characters to sway NPCs, but you can use them with other players to guide your role-playing. In this case, the rules serve as advice, telling you what you might do not what you must do. You select your own starting attitude. If you change your attitude and put yourself at a disadvantage because the rules suggest your character would be swayed by social maneuvering, the GM may reward you in some fashion. If you use experience points, following the rules may earn a bonus XP reward. All right, so it's not default, but at least this has an optional sidebar that says, yes, like NPCs can use these same rules to sway your character. It does not mind control your PC, but the same way that your character is affected by being frightened, and the same way that your character is affected by being prone, if your character gets affected by something, an NPC, they should probably act accordingly. And I like that they did that here. So we got a bunch of information here about social encounter systems. You need to adjust an NPC's attitude with a bunch of different tests, or you can make a grand gesture, which is an advanced test, and you have to make multiple successes over the course of several weeks as you sort of, so it's kind of like a montage sequence where you try to earn in with the people, earn reputation, earn the good graces of them. So that's all right. All right, so here are all of our ability focuses. So these are all the things that add +2. Long story short, these are basically proficiency from 5e, but instead of it being, +2, +3, +4, +5, I think this is +2, +3, maybe +4, but it really is just proficiency from 5e, from 5e. Because you're adding, essentially, it's an ability score, check, but if you have acrobatics and you're doing something acrobatics, you get to add +2. And if you're a higher level, it might be +3. So it really is just proficiency from 5e, which I don't think is a bad thing, by the way, but I don't think it's like reinventing, the wheel here. Focuses grant a flat +2 bonus, but at +3 at level 11. But even that may not be enough to reflect your character's training and skill. You can even go to double focus. All right. Optional trade focus. Fantasy Age is not the game of everyday life. It's about adventurers facing grave threats and extraordinary circumstances. That is why, while there are focuses to cover trade skills, they are quite broad. I like that. And they're saying if you want to get more into the slice of life, you might want to make more specific trade focuses. But by and large, that's not what the game is about. All right. Talents. What time we got here? Just want to see where we're at. We got talents on page 74. Lots of different talents. And then these are the specializations to the classes. And then we got equipment. All right. We got quite a bit of stuff here. All right. Each talent is novice, expert, and master levels. Each of these provides a game system benefit. You have to become a novice before you're an expert, and vice versa. If two talents say you must take a special minor or major action, these are generally separate actions, and their benefits do not stack with each other. Okay. Stunt cost reductions stack. If they reduce a stunt's cost to 0, you may only use the stunt once on any occasion where you use stunt points. Interesting. But it does cost 0. Very cool. All right. So and again, talents are things that we get from our leveling up. For example, we can gain alchemical explosives, which is for any class, and we either have to be a mage or we have to have an intelligence bonus of 2 or higher. So we're an alchemist. So a class in Pathfinder 2 is basically just a feat here in Fantasy Age. And of course, this is very gamist because, of course, it begs the question. So I don't know how to make alchemical explosives unless I take this talent. But you can make blast vials and thunder vials. At expert, you can make fire vials and ice vials. And at master, you can make acid and lightning vials. So those are obviously some sort of grenade or bomb bonus, but it kind of gives you a sense of what the talents do. Animal training. You can train animals. Arcane training. You get more spells. When you go to expert, you earn an additional novice degree or an additional expert spell from any arcana you know. Your power over the arcana's degree must be at least equal to the degree of the spell. And at master, you learn an additional spell of any degree from any arcana you know. Ooh. Archery style, you do a little bit more damage. You can reload as a free action. And eventually, you can perform the lightning attack stunt for 1 stunt point less, which is what lets you attack twice. All right, so, and they all scale up. I don't know how many, it's tough for me to tell how many of these you actually end up with. I don't think you get one of these every level. So maybe you end up with like 10 or 11 or 12 advancements. And so maybe you could have a couple of these at master, or you could have like 4 or 5 at expert, or you could have a bunch at novice. I think that's the sense I got. So these are okay. I don't know that they're, you know, I appreciate that there's kind of a wide variety of them, and that, you know, they can be taken by a lot of people. Damien confirming, you can go wide or go tall, but you can't do both. Yeah, right. So you can basically, like, you can either have a couple that you get to master, or you can have a bunch that you're at novice with. So I like that. That in general is probably a pretty cool way if they figured out a way to balance it. Now specializations are like our subclasses. So for example, if we are okay, a specialization is another way to customize your character and focus your class. If you say your character is a warrior, that's a broad statement. If you say that your character is a knight, it says quite a bit more. You get access to specializations through your class, but they also depend on the campaign. Specializations can represent social roles, training regimens, or even supernatural influences. Whenever you gain a specialization advancement from your class, you may, if you prefer, take a degree in a regular talent instead. So you don't have to take one of these. You can just take a talent. However, otherwise, you become a novice, expert, and then master in these different talents. So the Arcane Disciple is sort of like the archetyping into wizard, because this is available to everybody who isn't a wizard, but you do have to have, you know, somewhat of a reasonable int and willpower. And if you choose this as novice, you get 1 novice spell from any of the arcana, and you get your first batch of MP. And you can keep putting specializations into this, and you can get a couple more spells. Obviously, never as much as the mage, but this is basically a way for you to. It's basically archetypes from Pathfinder 2, actually. Whereas Arcane Scholar is sort of a class-specific specialization that is only for the mage, representing you going deep in on, you know, lore and scholarly stuff. Aristocrat, available again for the envoy. Unlocking specialization. The default assumption of the rules is that every specialization in your class is open to you as long as it exists in the campaign. But your GM may require you to work to access certain specializations. Finding a trainer, going on a quest, or finding a tome. It's cool. I like that. You know, a lot of people pick up these archetypes in Pathfinder 2, and it's like, you've never seen water in your entire life, and yet you just picked up the pirate archetype because some combo with some other ability. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I've never seen you pray once, and yet somehow you are now a champion. Doesn't really make sense. So again, you know, these are pretty simple. There's only 3 levels to each of these. Most of the powers are, you know, 1 or 2 sentences long. So they're pretty quick and simple. I don't have a good feel for how many specialization advancements you get. But again, my guess is you could probably have 1 or 2 of these that you can go deep in. Or you could have a couple, like 5 or 6, that you kind of have a little bit of a dabbling in, would be my guess, over the course of 20 levels. And there are quite a few of these. And so in a way, you know, this is doing what I wish Pathfinder 2 would do. There's only a couple classes. But where you can really make your character is with these specializations. And you could choose different specializations at each point along your character's growth. And you can only go 3, you know, there's only 3 advancements to take: novice, expert, master. So it's not like you can be like, no, I am all in, all 20 levels into just being a knight. well, you're going to run out of advancements to take. Like, you could take your 3 knights and then use your specializations to go take generic talents. But like, I feel like that's probably not I mean, it's a trade you could make, but I don't feel like it's a good trade to make. This is a design that I actually appreciate much more than the sort of, here's a million different classes. And you're like, a lot of times you're like, this feels just like a fighter, but with a different style. Or this feels like a wizard with a different style. I'd much rather there be like a really super generic class like warrior or fighting man or spell caster, skill guy, and then the archetypes can really kind of provide, or in this case the specializations can sort of provide the filling in the blanks. All right, so bunch of these, and then we get into equipment, which we're totally going to skip. But, my guess is there are things that you can buy and they do damage. Sure enough, that is correct. Here's some missile weapon ranges. Here's, of course, the obligatory, here's the page where half the art is pictures of a crossbow, in case you don't know what a crossbow looks like. Heavy plate takes 10 points of damage off. That's beast. All right. More grenades. This looks like this was literally copied from the D20 OGL. like almost verbatim. This list of equipment. We've got encumbrance rules, different tools that you might have on you with adventuring, clothes, raw good materials. I will take 1 pound of beeswax, please. All right. So, bunch of stuff. A lot of simulationist stuff here. I want a comb. Can I cut my hair? No. Can I comb my hair? No. Why? You don't have a comb. All right. Magic. Magic is divided into 19 different arcanas: air, beast, cold, death. If you're a novice in an arcana, you get 2 novice rank spells. If you're an expert, you get an expert rank spell. And if you're a master, you get a master rank spell. And in addition, most arcana provide a -1 stunt point discount on the cost of one specific stunt chosen when you have attained this degree. So I think that's pretty cool. Oh, I like this. Spells and armor. If you're wearing armor, you can cast spells, but it generates strain, which makes it cost more magic points to cast. Okay, that's cool. I like that idea. There's a lot of fun concepts about that. And this actually provides a compelling reason for why magic points are different than Vancian slots, because it allows you to do more with the resource system. So kudos, +1 to that. I like that a lot. And again, for each full hour of rest and meditation, you get back magic points. So again, this is one of those situations where it could be tricky to manage because players are going to want to sit there and, EQ style, they're just going to want to sit there and meditate and get back all their magic points as often as they can, right? And you gotta, there's a fine line to walk between that. We're not going to get too much into spell power. But spell power is 10 plus.
Frostjack
Hey,
$10.
Frostjack.
Wouldn't mind seeing another hour of this, but that doesn't look likely. Have some money anyway.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We'll at least get through stunts. I want to get through stunts, but thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Let's do magic and then we'll do stunts. Like I said, we're not going to do the GM section. We're not going to be able to get to that today. So, okay. A casting roll is 3d6 plus your intelligence bonus plus arcana focus if it's applicable. So, for example, a level 3 mage with the intelligence fire arcana focus would add +2 if they were casting a fire arcana. Okay, that makes sense. All right. In order to cast a spell, you have to know the spell. You have to possess enough remaining MP equal to the full cost of the spell, even if you end up paying less. Interesting. Casting takes up the action, minor, major, or whatever's listed. Based on the results of your casting, one of the following things happens. Either the roll succeeds, you successfully cast a spell, you pay the price in MP, although this can be modified by stunts. The spell then has its listed effects. Or the casting roll fails. You can either choose to let the spell fail as per spell failure, or you can push it to success as per pushing the spell. If you let it fail, pay half of its MP cost. Failure has a price. If you push it, you pay the full price plus the additional cost for pushing the spell. Then resolve the effects of the spell, if any, in any related situations. All right. Some spells make use of the stunts die, so it's a good idea to leave the dice as they fall until the spell is completely resolved. Interesting. Okay. If you fail a casting roll, you can conserve magic points by letting the spell fail, although it equals half. So it's kind of cool. You don't just spam. If you push, you not only have to pay the full MP, but you have to spend a number of additional MP equal to the distance between your failed roll and the spell's target number. So you can never actually, if you don't want to, you can't fail casting a spell, but you might have to pay a lot of points in order to do it, especially if you rolled really shitty. Spell power. For many spells, spell casting it is all you need to worry about, but sometimes you need to overcome the natural resistance of the target. Spell power is the measure of how your arcane might oppose, so it's basically DC. Yeah, in fact, it is DC. Look at this, 10, plus the willpower, plus arcana focus if applicable. So yeah, it's basically DC. Each spell has a standard effect, but if you do an exceptional job casting it, you can manipulate it to get more impressive results. These are spell stunts. Before we saw combat stunts, tripping, knocking prone, lethal strikes. So here are spell casting stunts. So if we roll double, we can get some stunt points equal to that special D6, and we can increase the spell power. We could reduce the cost of the spell. We can have it do extra damage, last longer, have a residual magical shield, cast another spell, which is sick, split a spell so it affects 2 people, or just like we had a lethal strike, we can also have a lethal spell. This is an optional rule for divine magic, which we'll skip, but I do like that they say, here are some ideas to differentiate them. We'll give them a different stunt table, which is pretty cool. And here is an example of our arcana spells. So here's our air. Again, we get 2 novices at first, but then we learn on either an additional novice or expert. We also get the focus. And then at master, we can also choose 1 spell stunt you can perform for 1 less stunt point if we cast air arcana. So what do we get for novice? Well, we might get air bubble. And again, we have to hit a 12 to cast it. It takes 4 magic points. And we create a bubble of air. 3-yard radius. It moves with us. And it lasts for an hour. You can renew an air bubble before it expires by recasting the spell and extend its duration for another hour. Simple, easy. 1 hour is kind of exactly the kind of thing I want. It works underwater, smoke, might, mist, dust, toxic gases, and we can keep casting it to keep it up. This is cool. I like that. And this is novice. Protective winds. This is +2 defense for ranged attacks. Anyone adjacent to you suffers a -1 penalty to melee attacks. Protective wind lasts until the end of the encounter. Cool. Full Metal Dragon. Is the spell magic system the same as in first edition? Full Metal Dragon, I don't know. This is the first time I am looking at either edition. So, save versus. I actually like Phage. That's kind of a cool way to turn it. Fantasy age. But didn't want to go the whole stream and not give something. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. Save versus. Appreciate it. Here's the thing. Like, do I like this game better than 5th edition D&D? Yes, I do. Do I like this game better than Pathfinder 2nd edition? Maybe. I mean, I could actually see where there'd be some advantages to playing this way. I think the stunt die is a really cool concept. But for the standard person who's out there playing Pathfinder 2 or 5th edition and relatively happy with their D20 system, I don't know that there's a lot of extra, the juice may not be worth the squeeze, right? In that regard. So like for someone like me who plays a bunch of systems, like this is kind of interesting and compelling. I like what it's doing with the class systems, but it's like there's so many of these games out there. There's Shadow of the Demon Lord. Hell, there's a new Kickstarter now for Shadow of the Weird Wizard, which is like a less evil occult demon post-apocalyptic version of Shadow of the Demon Lord. I mean, there's just so many different ways to play traditional fantasy RPGs. And if you're priced in on one of those and you're not interested in really expanding it, I don't know. Are there things about this that I like better? Sure. Than 5th edition and Pathfinder 2? Yes, absolutely. I think Pathfinder 2 can be a little too crunchy. This actually seems less crunchy than 5th edition. This is kind of a weird question. Do you like it more than Burning Wheel, Torchbearer, or Mouse Guard? I feel like that's completely different games. I really do. I mean, for me, when I'm playing Torchbearer or Mouse Guard, really those games are for me more about exploring what it costs, and Burning Wheel for sure. What costs am I willing to pay? What costs, what prices is my character willing to pay? What will they do? What will they never do? What will they always do? It's much more about a character exploration than really like the deeds that I do. This game, like most D20 games, is about, what are the kick-ass things that you're doing? What awesome places are you going? What incredible monsters are you battling? What great treasures did you find? Again, I've quoted all the time, but the slogan of the Mouse Guard, like literally in the game, in fact, it's carved into the wall as Mouse Guards leave Lockhaven and go out on patrol, is it says, it matters not what you fight. It matters not what, but why you fight. And like Mouse Guard is all about figuring out like, why do you fight? Not what do you fight? And so I really think that is kind of in a completely different sort of situation. Yes, save versus. I think the Kickstarter started just today, actually. So it's day 1, but I think it was already crushing it. I think it was already at 2x or 3x or something. Oh, yes, thank you. It matters not what you fight, but what you fight for. Thank you, Ben. It matters not what you fight, but what you fight for. And so that, to me, is a very different, compelling question. Nothing about this game is telling me, that I care about. It's more about like, look how cool I am. I'm casting spells and I'm doing sick kick flips off the enemy, right? So fundamentally, let's see. So, and again, we can dabble all over these places. Air bubble, protective wind, voices of the wind, wind net, wall of mist, wind blast, whirlwind, wings of flight. And then we're off to a different arcana. So you'll be able to like mix and match your characters. I like that there's not that many spells. There seems like there's maybe 4 to 5 spells maybe per arcana. They're very thematic. And there's only 19 of them. So, this game only has like 100 and something spells. That's less than there are level 1 wizard spell or level 1 arcane spells in Pathfinder 2. I'd much rather have spells that are more impactful and less of them than a bunch of spells that just fill pages. So I'm not going to go through every single spell here, but clearly I like this list without going too deep into it. I like the way that it's broken up into different arcanas. I think that is a cool way to make your character different and unique, and it has, I think, a fun role-playing aspect to it as well. Maybe your character is more of an elementalist, and you end up picking up, you end up going pound air, earth, fire, and water. Or maybe your character uses air and water and enchantment and mentalism, sort of like the mists of confusion, in both physically and mentally. Like, I think there's a lot of fun stuff that you could do by mixing and matching all these different arcanas to create really, really interesting and unique characters. Not to mention, I'm sure there's just, car op build options that people could probably stack, which is not nothing. It's not nothing. I mean, some people, that is a big reason. Oh, heroic arcana. That's pretty cool. Like if you want to go with the bard, right? Yeah, look at that. Hero's courage. See, that's pretty cool. That's neat. I like that. I actually like that a lot. So I really like the spellcasting system. I didn't think I would, but I do like it. I like that it's only like 6 or 7 spells. The big stuff that you would really expect to get, chain lightning, lightning storm. That's all the master level stuff. And so you're going to have to put several advances into this in order to get that. I think that's pretty good. So I'm a fan. I give the magic system a good big thumbs up. And I like the idea of, hey, you failed the roll. You could just, you can just eat crow and just pay half the cost, or you can, if you want to, you can cast it anyways, but it's going to cost you a lot of extra MP. It's a cool little choice for the character to make. And again, it's a fun resource management. There's basically cantrips that everybody can do, which is cool. Yes, your character is a wizard and can be a cool wizard person that can, unseen servant, arcane mark, the light spell, right? All the basic stuff that you would normally get, which is pretty sweet. All right. So now we come to it. Chapter 6, Stunts, which is going to be the last thing that we're going to do. You are welcome for the answer. Happy to talk about it. Say Versus has already backed it. I need to back it. I just didn't get a chance to do it today. Full Metal Dragon. We talked about Daggerheart. I got a chance to look at the character sheet and talk to somebody who played it at Gen Con. I think there's a lot of people out there with information about it on Reddit and Twitter or X or whatever it's called. But fundamentally, obviously, and the game is still a year away from release. So what we are seeing is obviously a very, prototype version of the game. But I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing. So I think that's definitely going to be good. Badoom says, the stunt die mechanic is weird to me. I don't want to rely on chance to make tactical choices. Seems better suited for a fiction-first combat system. I actually agree with you, because the game said it's a sword and sorcery, kind of a swashbuckling-esque feel to it. It's not about making these hyper-optimal choices. I really do think this game is a little bit more about action-adventure, and rather than sitting there and trying to do all this analysis paralysis of what would be the best possible outcome for me, the game just says, look, just make your roll. And if you get a stunt, cool. You can do something extra and special, but we're not going to let you just like grind out the same, broken combo over and over and over again. All right. Now that you know all the basic rules for playing the game, you can explore encounters and use the dice to help them determine their outcomes. You're all set to brawl with enemies, solve mysteries, and sway hearts and minds. This chapter introduces a way to make those encounters more exciting and dynamic called Stunts. With Stunts, a hero can win an argument or defeat a foe with style. You can perform maneuvers to give yourself and your teammates extra advantages to accomplish feats more complex than the basic rules can cover. Most NPCs can use stunts, so the GMs can mix things up to make things more challenging and fun. As a reminder, to generate stunt points on a roll, you have to succeed, and you need to roll doubles. Or you have to use the stunt attack option, which doesn't do any damage, but it generates 2 stunt points minimum. So it's basically a way that you can say, like, look, you don't need to roll doubles, but this doesn't really give you a lot of stunt points. So if you want to, I want to trip, then you just do a stunt attack. And if you succeed, just like if you succeed with the trump, you get 2 stunt points, and you can use those to trip somebody. When the test is a simple test, it cannot generate stunt points with doubles, and it can't have stunt points spent to enhance its effects. In other words, you can't cheese it out, which, again, nice. You have to know the stunt to do it, to use it. There's basic stunts, advanced stunts. Now, basic stunts are things that everybody can use. Advanced stunts at each even numbered level. So there's 10 of them throughout the course of the game. You gain an advanced stunt. So this is something that only you can do. The most common advanced stunts are class stunts, available only to members of your character class. Class stunts are superior to basic stunts. They give members of the class distinct actions that they can perform. So there you go. In some campaigns, there may also be other forms of advanced stunts available. And this was the first thing that I thought of that actually got me really excited. You see, one of the inherent problems with me is when I play games, I want to give players cool shit to do. But the problem is, if you give characters cool shit to do, then they tend to just do that all the time. Rightfully so. But what you can do instead is, if you want to give your character some cool house-ruled homebrew thing, you can give them a stunt. which number one limits how often it comes up. They have to get doubles. And if you want it to be something that's really powerful, have it cost 5 stunt points or something, or 6 stunt points, so that it's something that, in theory, they could do it multiple times a fight. But in practice, they'll probably only be using it once or twice a session, because how often do they roll doubles and succeed and generate that many stun points? The answer, probably not all that often. And so this is something I would use a lot for my own custom stuff, because I love to just, one of the reasons I hate feats is because I like to just give my players cool shit to do anyways. Lastly, situational stunts. Spell stunts and chase stunts are examples of situational stunts, which apply only to narrower groups of actions. In other words, you only get to do spell stunts if you're casting a spell. You can only use these list of chase stunts if we're in a chase. You might have specific stunts, like in the temple with the vines, there could be stunts to represent swinging around in them. Use them or lose them. So there is the answer that I was saying. The stunt must fit the action. The stunts must tell a story. You can't take the same stunt twice. All right. Bunch of other stunt considerations. Here are our basic stunts. Now, we've seen these before, right? We saw these in the list before. These are your basic push, shove, grab, disarm, trip, yada, yada, yada. Nothing super fun or fancy here, but we have seen this list before earlier in the show. This one here, I think, particularly stands out. Lightning attack, which lets you make a second attack. Going to be something that'll be very nice if people want to do a lot of damage. That's pretty good. If someone does have higher armor, you can try to use pierce armor or crushing blow to get through it. If they don't have armor, you might just want to do additional damage with your attack. There are also social stunts. We talked about these before, but in a social encounter, these are basically things that you can do. Again, different than combat, but social related. Again, I like social combat systems. I think that it's a part of the game, and I think playing the game is fun. Again, my only concern, of course, now this is gamist, people. It's not simulationist. You have to. I played 4th edition, and I liked 4th edition D&D, because the problem is someone's going to say, hey, I want to, why can I attack twice that turn, but I can't attack twice the next turn? Well, you didn't roll doubles and get 3 stunt points. It's like, but what does that mean? Or if we go back to the social stunts, it's like you taunt them. Okay, well, can I just taunt them normally? And I guess the answer would be yes, because you could just do the basic two stunt point thing. But it's like, can I inspire my ally? Well, no, you can't. But I did last round. Yeah, because that was a stunt. And now this round you can't, because you don't have 4 stunt points. So there's a gamist consideration here that you have to take into account. That this is not about simulating a perfect representation of these abilities. In some ways, sense of form, the stunt system is very similar to, 4E's encounter system. Why can I do this thing sometimes, but not every time? And the answer is, that's up for you to decide. But the long and the short of it is, you can't, and you should work to make that make sense. And here are some exploration stunts as well, and the spell stunts. So there we go. There are 4 basics: combat, social, exploration, spell. Very cool. Now, these are what we get out of our classes, and we get one of these every even level. And at levels 6, 12, and 18, they can choose a stunt from any class's list. That's very cool. Not just their own, although they cannot select a stunt that requires a capability that we do not possess. So again, a class stunt is either equivalent to a basic stunt worth 1 stunt point more, or it provides a combination of benefits not found. So again, these are better. So I'm going to just, for sake of convenience, I'm going to skip the envoy, and let's go to the mage. So let's say for 2 skill points, 2 stunt points, we can generate a mystical armor around us. This grants us armor rating equal to our willpower ability, but it does not stack with the armor you might be wearing. I would make it stack with the armor that I was wearing. That would be the first rule I would do, because this is like so infrequent that like you can't rely on it. I mean, this is cool, but I would let it stack. Battle magic. You may immediately follow up your spell with an arcane blast as a free action. So basically, if you stunt while casting a spell and you get 2 stunt points, you get to basically make your arcane blast, right? The arcane blast is basically like the kineticist elemental blast. It's just sort of like the generic elemental damage, generic arcane damage. I love the idea of like, hey, if you cast a spell and do it like a badass, boom, you could just blow somebody away. I am sorry, Ariel. Well, hopefully you can catch the rest of it on the VOD. We are going to be wrapping up here in the next 10 or 15 minutes, though, so you're not really going to miss that much. There's a lot of stuff here, which I like, because it does remind me of Legend of the Five Rings. It reminds me of katas and sujis and invocations, and a lot of these things really, really work the same way. In Legend of the Five Rings, a lot of your cool powers and abilities trigger off of you generating opportunities on your dice rolls. And I do like that system. Now, this is not doing it with symbols on a dice. It's doing it with doubles and stunt points. But fundamentally, I think that this stunt system is actually quite fun. And I do think this is quite interesting. Now, obviously, you're going to have, as the game goes on, you're going to end up with 10 of these class stunts. And if, say, we were in a combat, theoretically, I could do any of these 12 different basic combat stunts. And while I may not do all of them all the time, in theory, they are always available to me. So in combat, at the end of the game, I'm going to have this list of, hold on a sec, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There are 15 plus the 10 I got from my class. I'm going to have 25 stunts available to me. Technically, I'll have 15 at the beginning of the game, and then 16, and then 17, and then 18. So hopefully you get used to it. And obviously, some of these stunts don't matter to you. Rapid reload doesn't matter if you're not wielding a ranged weapon. But I do feel like a lot of people are probably going to get good use out of 6 or 7 or 8 of those. Is that too much? Is that going to create analysis paralysis? I don't think so. I'd have to try it out. I know that choosing how to spend your opportunities, your ops in Legend of the Five Rings can lead to analysis paralysis. And a lot of people on Discord talk about that. Would this be the same? I don't know. It remains to be seen. But I like the idea of picking these. I also like the idea that these are notice, these are self-balancing. There's no level requirement to these things. You see, my very first class talent, I could take penetrating magic, which is very, very powerful. It turns your arcane blast into penetrating damage. But it takes 5 stun points, which means you need, if I do get doubles and I roll, but I only got 3 stun points. I only got 4 stun points. So this is very powerful, but you won't be able to use that this often, probably until higher levels when certain things give you more stun points. That is where, Ben, I agree that opportunities kind of are better, because and in fact, arguably, I would say that sometimes when I play Legend of the Five Rings, the thing that I get the most upset about opportunities is how gamey they feel, and how it's like, oh, you can spend this op to reduce their armor by 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, which is okay. It's fine. But what I really like about opportunities is how the game says, and you can use these to sort of influence the narrative in a cooler way, or how you can describe how, like, add an adjective or an adverb to an activity. You did that activity, but you did it gracefully and quickly because you had 2 opportunities. And I do like that in Legend of the Five Rings specifically, they do call out that opportunities can be a kind of structured, hard mechanical thing, or you could either do it all in addition, or you could do it instead. It can be this sort of nebulous role-playing type thing. I mean, we've kind of created at our Legend of the Five Rings table a sort of understanding that if, like, the scale of like 1, 2, 3 op, and like if a character spends 3 op on a check, like they basically kind of gain a certain amount of, narrative control, right? Like they can kind of change the world a little bit and be like, wow, what an amazing, incredible opportunity because you rolled 3 op. And that's been really, really fun. And I really, really appreciate that. I would just have people select their talent to be used before the roll, before they even know if they're going to be selecting from the list. Yeah, but that kind of defeats the purpose, Dan. Because like part of the fun of this is, oh, hey, I get to decide what I'm going to do. I get to roll, and then I get to make additional choices. And that's where that's where the fun of this comes in. Save versus, you are absolutely correct. There is nothing. I'm not trying to defend Pathfinder 2nd Edition any stretch of the imagination. I played a high level Pathfinder 2 character. I had, 13 or something class feats as a fighter, plus 10 skill feats, plus 5 or 6 general feats, plus 5 or 6 ancestry feats. I mean, I had so many things written, and that's not including my 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 magical items, plus some spells that I got from an archetype. If you have free archetype, add another 10 feats on top of that. Yeah, there was a lot. I forgot more on my character sheet than I usually know about on a character sheet. So yeah, it absolutely is the case that these games can get quite complicated. I don't feel like this would actually get that complicated. So here's our rogue stunts. Favored exploration stunt. You can use a basic exploration stunt for 1 stunt point less than usual. This applies to a single stunt normally worth 2 or more. You may select a new favorite exploration stunt multiple times, but you can't select the same stunt multiple times. So you'd be like, oh, I really like doing that in exploration mode. I am going to make it cheaper. That's pretty cool. You can redirect a blow, make opposed attack rolls with your opponent. If you win, their next attack automatically misses. Pretty cool. And again, some of these really, really powerful ones can tempt players into taking them, but they won't be able to do them as often because you need to not only roll doubles, but you need to have enough stunt points in order to achieve them, which is pretty cool, which I like. And here's our warrior stunts. Actually, it doesn't seem like there's that many of these. We can get so it's kind of cool. All right. Oh, that's kind of neat. Yeah, that makes total sense. Right? We talked about how there's 4 basic stunts: combat, exploration, social, and magic. And the envoy they can make social stunts their favored and make them cheaper. The mage can make spell stunts their favored and cheaper. The rogue can make exploration stunts cheaper and their favorite. And the warrior can make combats cheaper. So I like that. I do like that symmetry. Let's see. If I'm a warrior and I'm fighting, I'm just basically attacking, but I got a stunt. Cool. I can block and I can add extra armor rating. I can counter. And they have to pay additional stunt points to affect you before spending other stunt points. I can strike a limb. I can threaten. I can taunt, basically. If you win, the enemy cannot use their next major action, attack, or otherwise try to harm anyone except you. So literally taunt. And then if I want to go really big, I can go Storm of Strikes. Apply your attack roll to a number of additional targets equal to your dexterity modifier. If you are using a missile weapon, you must have sufficient ammunition. So basically just go all out. Wounding blow. Your precise yet debilitating blow inflicts the blinded, deafened, or scarred condition. So what is this game about? This game is about, it claims to be about fantasy adventures. It claims to be about sword and sorcery, kind of swashbuckling feel. And certainly the game does speak to that. It number one, it has this idea of these stunts that your character can do, these kind of cool looking acrobatic or impressive actions that your character will take during the various encounters, but they trigger randomly, which makes it feel a little bit more dicey, a little bit more chancy. Number two, the book in many places talks about how, at least it tries to say, like, your character is, starting from the bottom. They are exploring ruins. We don't really have detailed trading rules or crafting rules because that's nearly not what our game is about. The game seems to really want to be about encounters. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean combat, because the game does seem to have a fairly well-structured set of circumstances for social encounters, exploration encounters, and combat encounters. And you kind of have one class that's kind of good at each of those. And then there's mages, which probably kind of do a little bit of everything depending on what spells they have. So I like that the game seems to be trying to fill that role of being like a kind of pulpy D20 game. I feel like that's where they're going for with it. Stunts and the tone, but then we get the D20 style equipment list. We get the weights and encumbrances, and we get how many pounds of beeswax and indigo dye that you have available to you. And that to me that feels vestigial to me. I don't know why in this game where I've got all these cool stuff. I mean, I feel like this in Pathfinder 2 as well. Like, why do I have these? I mean, I have these amazing, cool, awesome feats, but my character is supposed to be tracking ammo too. It always feels very counter-purposed. That part to me seems to kind of miss the mark. Now, do the mechanics support that kind of exciting action play? I don't know. Having not played it, it's hard for me to weigh in exactly on that. But I would say that if I was imagining playing this game, I do think stunts would be exciting. It's not enough that you can bank on getting a stunt, but it's also not so rare that you can't have reasonable hope that you're going to get a stunt. Like, it's not out of the question that a character might get a stunt and then their next action they get a stunt. Could easily happen. And I really do kind of appreciate that. I will say that because stunts trigger on doubles and success, it does kind of incentivize you to try to do easier things rather than harder things. Because if you do a harder thing, you might end up failing, which means you kind of wasted your doubles. I was really hoping they would do something where if you roll doubles and you fail, you still get some sort of stunt points. I feel like that would be really awesome. I feel like that has a really big womp womp. I feel like that the factor is really there for somebody to roll doubles. Like you were like, oh, I rolled a 2 and a 2, and you're like, oh, but my other die was a 1 and I missed. It's gonna feel like, quote, you wasted the crit, and I just feel like that's a feel bad moment that is just waiting to happen. Again, haven't played it. People who have played the game a lot more than me could answer this, but it would be like the equivalent of D&D of like, and I get it, don't get me wrong. Rolling doubles is going to happen a lot more often than rolling a nat 20 or something like that. But it would be like rolling a nat 20 and be like, yeah, no, you still missed. It would feel very kind of like, and you might say, well, that's totally unexpected, unreasonable. But that's not the way human beings work. It's certainly not the way players at your table work. They are going to view stunts as crits, and I don't think that that's a incorrect assumption. And vice versa, they're going to view rolling doubles and then missing as feeling like they somehow wasted the crit. Especially if they roll like double ones and the stunt die was like a 6, and then they still fail. They're going to be like, come on. That sucks. I would have gotten so many stunt points. But I'm probably more excited. I like the stunt system better than probably feats in D20 in Pathfinder, just because when you can do the feat every single round if you want to, it doesn't really feel that particularly special. I never felt cool power attacking. I've had plenty of characters going all the way back to 3rd edition who had power attack, but it never felt to me that impressive or special. Maybe it was mechanically or numerically, but it didn't feel that way. But if I landed a successful hit and I got a stunt and I got 4 points and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to deal an extra lethal strike and roll a bunch of extra damage. Yeah, I probably would feel pretty cool about that. I think that would, again, I don't know about the mechanics being good, but in terms of how they would make me feel, and that's something that I really, really, kind of focus on. Now, we didn't get into experience points, but we did see a couple of things where they mentioned about, experience points kind of being very generic. the GM awards them for encounters or just use a milestone. So the reward system in this game seems a little bit, pretty generic and standard. And that's okay. Again, I mean, there's nothing that prevents you from playing this game and saying, you guys, anytime you guys uncover a legendary treasure, you guys gain a level. That's how you level in my game. It's the only way to level. Or you could say, every time you take out another member of the Cabal of the Blood Sorcerers, you gain a level. And it's like, the Cabal of the Blood Sorcerers, there's is a group of 21 powerful evil wizards. And it's like, ranging probably in power level from low to high. And it's like, okay, so we have to attack, we have to attack these blood sorcerers. And that's what our game's going to be about. And the GM's like, yep. And nothing else you do will earn you experience points. Only taking out blood sorcerers will get you experience points. That's fine. You've now made your game about that. I just wish more game systems were like not afraid to like talk about that and do that. One of the biggest advantages to old school D&D was that everyone kind of fundamentally understood, hey, this is a game about getting treasure and loot, and the game rewards us for getting treasure and loot. So we're all kind of on the same page here, and we kind of understand what we need to go do to level. Part of my problem with milestone-based experiences is a lot of times players are like, I don't know what I need to do to level. The GM has sort of suggested that if we follow this path, we will level, but I don't understand what specific actions I could be taking today that will get us to that level. And I like there to be a direct connection between that because, right, what gets rewarded gets repeated. Anyways, Viking said I should play GURPS. I bought GURPS a long time ago. And I don't even know where it is. I don't know what edition I have. I have a very old edition of GURPS, but I never got into it. It felt too fiddly to me. I do think that I will say this, by the way. I think that a generic game does kind of turn me off, honestly. I like games to be about something. I like for games to unapologetically say, I like people poo-poo Luke Crane. I think Luke Crane is great. Luke Crane says, this is what my game is about. This is what we need to do. And to me is great. That's what I want to do. I like games that are unapologetically about something. So I think generic games to me don't interest me as much, honestly. I mean, I'll be honest with you, like, Pathfinder 2, D&D, to a certain extent, aren't as interesting to me because I'm like, what is this game even about? Well, it's about, adventuring with swords and magic. And I'm like, that is just too loose of a definition to me. And you say, well, you can make your game about anything you want. True. But where are the mechanics to support it? And I like to play games. I don't like to just sit around and, do fluffy bullshit time. Damien says, the interesting part of the XP system is XP is awarded by how hard it was, not how hard you planned it. Oh, Damien. That is a negative for me. I do not like that at all. I like for XP to be objective, not subjective. I like in my games where I have played like classic, old school type games, if there is a treasure hoard of 1,000 gold, which will give everybody 1,000 experience points, and there's a really crazy monster that guards it, and the group, I don't know, figures out some dumb way to get in without fighting the monster, I don't care. Like, it was super easy. Cool. You guys, whether it was because of lucky dice rolls, or because you guys were smart and clever, either way, you have earned your 1,000 experience points. I don't like subjective XP totals like that. So it's probably a good thing we didn't get to that. I probably would have been very poo-pooing about that. Hardrick says, this game is about publishing Dragon Age TTRPG without the licensing. It's funny, Hardrick. I love Green Ronin. If you look back on my shelf here, I have an incredible amount of Green Ronin books. especially Mutants and Masterminds, which I've bought since the very beginning of first edition. But but Green Ronin has a literal laundry list of titles that they had an IP, they did a game on the IP, they lost the IP, but like the game system, so then they had to make like a new generic version. Dragon Age became Fantasy Age. The Sword, Song of Ice and Fire RPG became the Chronicle system. Like there's so many, because they lost that IP, but they're like, but we have this game system and we have the copyright and the license to the rules, so we're just going to publish this under a generic license. And it is funny that is exactly what it is about. Heart first, look soon. Yeah, Ryan, I think we could probably manage that at some point. We got a lot of stuff going on. I mean, again, this was a bonus stream because Bob wasn't feeling great. I was a little burned out, and so it just felt like it wasn't the right night to get together and try to play anthropomorphic, murderous terrorist route. But yeah, we'll definitely try to do that soon here. Josh says, I think the TLDR on this review will be, if you're going to compete in the generic fantasy sphere, you need to bring your game, your A game. Josh, couldn't agree with you more. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with this game. There's a lot of the magic system won me over. I like a nice, compact magic system with not that many spells and abilities. I'd rather have fewer, cooler powers than just a shitload of them. I don't want to play a character like Pathfinder 2. I played a high level cleric. I played a high level fighter and a high level cleric in Pathfinder 2. My high level cleric was too much. I had, I don't know, like 40 or 50 or something spells. It was way too much. And most of them were so, specific that it just didn't really make a whole lot of sense. I actually prefer this magic system to the generic sort of Vancian system for this style of game. I think it works really, really well. And I got to admit, I think the stunt die would be fun. But, when I think about the games from Kobold Press, I think about whatever Matt Colville is making. I think about, Daggerheart seems like it's going to really try to be something different. So I'm interested to see what I said about this. But the fact of the matter is, there is like this base level of assumption that everybody in the sort of traditional RPG space expects in a game. Like the base level consumer, they're like, no, I need to have equipment and I need to be able to buy chalk and rations and rope, even though more than likely we'll never talk about them or use them ever. This is really important to me. And so I feel like these games feel like they are pressured into putting these things into their game, even though they don't really want to, because they're like, otherwise people will go, oh, what is this? Some sort of weird indie game? What are you gonna have me talking about my feelings next? Ugh. So while again, this game, for the most part that I could see, did not have any real narrativist mechanics. There didn't even seem to have hero points or bennies or fate points. So, the game seems to be much more about the mechanics and getting to do cool things with the mechanics. Maybe a little bit of light simulationism. But if I talk about a game that is like light simulationism, minimal narrativist mechanics, relatively medium to high gamist mechanics, I could have just been describing Pathfinder 2nd Edition, Dungeons and Dragons, Project Black Flag, right? There's a million games that do that. And even if this game does it better, which it might, I'm not going to say that because I haven't played it, but even if it does do it better, you're asking a lot of people to go out and buy a whole new game system and have an entire new group learn an entirely new game system. This doesn't even use a D20. At least Pathfinder 2, you could say, yeah, it's got strength, dex, con, int, whiz, charisma, D20, roll high, armor class, the basic stuff. This is something completely different. And your players will go through all that motion and you go, is it worth it? And you might, maybe you'll say it is, but maybe you won't. Damien, with the exception that clever panning that makes the encounter easier does not count against its difficulty. Fair. But I'm still going to poo-poo on it, Damien, because if the PCs get a bunch of crits and they take the enemy out in seconds, why should I give them less experience points? If the enemy goes ham and I roll well, I don't know. I don't think that's worth more experience points. I don't know. I get what you're saying. It makes experience points more about like, but how much experience did they actually earn? That which does not kill us makes us stronger. I get it. I mean, there's definitely a logic. There's a logical path to get to that point. I just don't like it. So let's see. Josh, I was surprised by Derek's first I hate background comment. Backgrounds are vital, but I was thinking in terms of root, blades, etc. They can work as written in Fantasy H2 or second edition, but they're clunky. And I completely agree with you. I do think that they're clunky. I like background. Like backgrounds to me are, for example, in Blades in the Dark, your character has a heritage, right? Basically, the equivalent. Everyone's a human, but like, where are you from? Are you a Skovelander? Are you Arcosian or whatever? Are you Eruvian? Right? You have a heritage, and then you have a background. What did you do? And before becoming a scoundrel in the city, and at the end, you're like, oh, that's cool. That's background, whatever. But at the end of the session, one of the XP questions is, did the group learn, were you influenced, or did the group learn something about your character's ancestry, background, or whatever, and her heritage? And if the answer is no, you don't get an experience point. And if the answer is yes, you do get an experience point. And so there's a very clear connection between, hey, these things should be influencing the way that you play, and, go from there. Basically say like, hey, and by the way, sometimes it can feel very prescriptive. I mean, I don't want to, no one has to be a complete, people don't, I don't expect people to be Shakespearean actors. I think it's totally fine for someone to be like, hey, I get, like, let's say that the group just got ran off of their turf, right? A group of people came up and threatened them and intimidated them off, and they kind of got ran out of their own streets. And, the one character's like, man, I am so mad and angry. And kind of even like, it tells the group like, I'm a Skovelander, and we do not handle, defeat like this well. We are all about saving public face. And so my character is obsessed with getting even, getting revenge. He is not going to let this go, because that is just the way that Skovelanders are. We don't take shit laying down. In that moment, that character in that instance has described, actually kind of in character, but also kind of out of character, to make it very clear to everybody else around him, like, this is why I'm acting this way. It's because of this element of my character's background. I'm bringing that background or heritage or whatever, or ancestry, into the current situation, which makes it relevant so that you care. Right? So often when people bring up backgrounds, it's completely unrelated to anything that we're doing. And people go, yeah, I don't fucking care. What do I care? But now you're like, oh shit. Dave over here is gonna go ham and might start shit. Maybe starts an entire street war or gang war with this other group just because of, some harsh words were exchanged on the street. Now it may end in blood. And everyone's like, oh, this is all happening because of their heritage. This is why I complain so much about people playing any ancestry in any fantasy RPG, because you took elf because you liked, the cute art you found on Reddit for your chibi elf character, or because you really liked that you could start with a 30-foot feet movement and then take a feat to get to 35 and be a monk and take fleet and be like, I have 50 movement by level 3. You didn't take an elf to be an elf. Anyways, going off topic. Let's see here. Damien, still going after, buddy. Going after me. Listen, you won. We did the first look. You can't win them all, Damien. You can't win all the battles. You can't win them all. I'm not gonna. That is something I will not. I don't like that style of XP awarding. In this kind of game, I should say. Josh says the difference between background here and Traveler, PBTA, Forged in the Dark is situating them inside session 0, making them collaborative and interconnected rather than individual character building. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. Most people in these D20 games, particularly Pathfinder 2, are not choosing a background because they feel like that is what fits their character. They're doing it because it has ability scores that match up with what they want to boost and because it has a skill feat that isn't horseshit for most people. And even if you do take your background, how often does it really come up? How often is it relevant? The answer is never. It really isn't. Like how often, and be honest with you, have you played a Pathfinder 2 game and someone was asked to make an attack roll or a athletics check and they passed by 1 and the character went, man, I just passed that. That's because of the strength boost I got from being a smithy all those years working in forges in Otari, build up my muscles, and that's why I had that boost to strength. No. The answer is never. It has never happened, not once in all of Pathfinder history. Ryan loves advancement. Ryan's talking about heart. Ben is talking about how fervently people are clinging to their favorite things. I mean, look, we're all entitled to our favorite things, but so yeah, again, this was just a first look. I know we didn't get a chance to go into the GM section, but let's assume that they did a good job. What would I rate this game? I would rate the game gamist. Ironically, the gamist score is a little lower because of the variableness of your stunts and how there's some, like you don't get to like, you can't like, the further away you get from like a pure game like chess or Magic the Gathering, right? Where randomness becomes more of the outcome availability, it becomes a little bit more less gamist in my mind. Like chess would be like a 10, right? I would say that this probably comes in around a 5 or a 6, maybe, on the gamist front. And the simulationist front is very low, just like Pathfinder 2. I mean, it's there, but it's there for appearances. My guess is it shouldn't even be an important part of the process. I mean, look at this cover art. Like this strikes me as a campaign that isn't worried. I mean, look at both these characters. Neither of them has a fucking backpack. But if we were playing this game and we were, in this moment, I guarantee you that these two character sheets would have a backpack with 50 feet of rope and 2 weeks of rations and a bedroll, maybe a tent, a couple pots and pans, some chalk, a crowbar or 3, some climbing pitons, maybe some crampons, a healer's kit, an entire set of smithy tools, right? Like these are all the shit that we write down on our character sheet. But when we make our cool art or when we get the Wayne Reynolds cover art, what does it show them? Fuck all. They don't have any of that, right? They're just badass characters kicking ass and taking names against the living snake cult people in the middle of this cool abandoned street with some hardcore ass snake wizard necromancer dude in the background. I'm all in for that. I'm just saying, like, to quote Judge Judy, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Now that is true, Damien. We did not get into the GM section where they do have some optional rules that could really change up some of this stuff. So but those are optional. So we are just looking at the core game here. So I would say that the G score here is like a 5 or a 6. The simulation score is like a 3. And the narrative score, now here's an interesting question. Question is, are stunts narrative? And I think the answer is a little bit, but not that much. So I'm going to say that the narrative score is like a 2. So it's probably like a 6-3-2. 6-2-3. So G score 6, N score 2, S score 3, maybe 4. So something in that range. Overall, based on never playing the game, but just on a first look, I'm going to give this 2 grades. First grade is going to be a completely objective score. Now, Matthew says, what about the emulation score? Matthew, I don't think this game is trying to emulate anything that I could tell. It's trying to be a generic fantasy adventure game that kind of makes emulation a tough sell. So my guess is that I would say that the emulation score is 0. I don't really think this game is trying to recreate any sort of specific experience or generate any sort of specific emotions. Like maybe you could say the stunt system is supposed to make the game feel a little bit swashbuckly, maybe, but I think it would be a really weak argument. So I'm going to give this 2 grades. One is going to be completely objective, like based on the materials and the structure. And the other one's going to be subjective. Like what do I think about the game? So objectively, I think the game is probably like a B+. The math seems to work out well. There seems to be a lot of interesting options to do. I think the magic system is cool. I like the reduced class set. I think adding complexity through your options is really cool. I like that it gives you options to sort of build your character dynamically through play. There's a lot of options. Pathfinder 2 has proven that this is very, very popular. And the stunt system, I think, provides an interesting dynamic between, right, normally in D&D you make a decision and then that's it. You roll your dice and that's the end of your choices. The outcome of that action is complete. You don't get any more say in it. The stunt system gives it so that, I don't know, 1 every 3 successes, you're going to be like, oh, not only did you succeed, but you succeeded as a stunt. And now you get to make some cool bonus decisions. And I think that would play over really well at the table. I think legitimately people at the table would be pretty pumped for getting a stunt. I'm willing to wager that getting a stunt would be maybe with a good stunt value, 4 or 5 or 6, I think would probably go over or feel better than a critical hit does in a standard D20 game. I really do think that, except for maybe like high level Pathfinder where you have like all your critical specializations and a bunch of runes and like getting a crit is like a ton of power, but I think it could play out really well. So I think a B, a high B+, in terms of its overall effectiveness for being a trad D20 game. For me personally, like C-, almost a D. There's not enough here that I would really be like willing to go the extra mile and difference to play this just to get maybe a couple of these cool little things. If somebody offered to play this game, would I play it? Sure. But am I going to go out of my way to like get a group together, teach them a whole new system just to play a game that is basically its own version of D&D? I don't think I will.
Mighty Dave tipped $5.
Hey.
Timing is way off for me with returning from Gen Con today, but I'll catch the VOD. Tip to support first looks.
Thank you, Mighty Dave. Appreciate it. I know you had a hell of a... I can't believe you're just getting back now. You guys went hard at Gen Con. It was really awesome getting to meet you and your partner. And I look forward to seeing you at future events, sir. Maybe I'll make it out to StratCon or Strategicon someday. And of course, NightCon. But thank you so much for your tip. So yeah, for me, it's like at this point, I have enough trad D20 games that have a little bit of mechanical crunch and height. But again, there are things about this game that I like. I like that. I've said it before. At this point in my life, if I never had to put minis on a grid again and count squares, I would be probably pretty happy. I've done that so many times. And maybe if I went the next 10 years without playing a single minis game and I'm getting close to my 50s then, and I'm like, you know what, I just want a grid. I'm dying to play a grid-based combat game. Maybe that would feel differently. But I like that this game defaultly uses theater of the mind. I feel like it's kind of competing in the same space as 13th Age. And I see a lot of similarities there between the two of them. But what gives 13th Age for me personally the tip of the hat is 13th Age is unapologetically, it's like we don't care about ranges. You know, like everything we've talked about in this game, doesn't measuring ranges in yards feel archaic and out of place? Doesn't that feel like that shouldn't matter? Why does it matter what my character's speed is or what the range of my bow is? Just, like the game is trying to be pulpy and quick factions. Just make it like, close, near, far or something. That is the kind of style that I want coming off of this. And 13th Age does that. And so that's probably why if I was thinking about these two games in that space, I think I would give the nod to 13th Age. That being said, this probably isn't quite as loosey-goosey narrative, fun-flowing icon dice. Cool things are going to probably emerge. And a lot of people probably have a hard time with that. I love that about 13th Age because it's kind of starting to dip its toe into sort of, Powered by the Apocalypse indie type games. And I really like that. This game feels like it's a little bit closer to your traditional 3rd edition style of D20 game, just with this extra added benefit of stunts or reworking of the way that class structures work. And I think in a much better way. I like the classes and specializations of Fantasy Age more than I like the classes and archetypes of Pathfinder 2. I haven't read through all of them, but assuming even half of them are cool and interesting, they will already be winning. So, that is kind of my take on it. So that is going to wrap up our first look as we go into 10 o'clock. Look at that. We ended up going 3 hours anyways, but we did it. We did meet our Call of Cthulhu tip goal, or a street project goal, thanks to a generous donation from Ben. And we also had some additional wonderful tips and supports from so many of you. So thank you so much to all of you for coming out and watching this tonight. Again, if there are things about this game that you think I missed or that you think I should give another fair shake to or didn't consider, again, remember, this is literally the first time I'm opening the book. Feel free to drop a comment below. If you like this kind of conversation, if you want to support this kind of content, if you want to chat with all these people that were in here tonight, maybe take a look in the link below to our Discord, to our Patreon, which will get you into our Discord, which is a private Discord. It's only for members of the Knights of the Last Call community. And that is where we play games, we talk about games, and, sometimes we share dank memes. It's a really great community, and I think if you like over the last couple of weeks, we've played Root, we've talked about Kineticist, we talked about Forbidden Lands, we talked about the difference in dungeon design from an old school perspective to sort of a new school perspective. If those are the kind of videos that you want to see, then this is the kind of channel, this is the kind of community that you maybe should be a part of. So I look forward to maybe seeing you in the Discord. If there are any other thoughts, comments, or questions, leave a comment below. Remember to like and subscribe and ring the bell so that you'll be notified every time we go live. And we'll be back Thursday with a stream. Hitherto unknown. I actually don't know what we're going to be talking about. We might be talking Pathfinder 2. I would love to talk more about the Kineticist. I think it's a really cool class design, and I personally kind of want to go over all of it just because I think it's really neat and fun. But as always, I will let my patrons sort of weigh in and we'll think about it. We will be doing a Call of Cthulhu first look soon. And I will be maybe working with Ben to try to make sure I cover the right parts. But I look forward to that as well. All right, everybody. That is going to wrap it up. As I do so, Damien says the optional rules in the GM section are all the shit Derek likes in game. So that is a careful consideration. So I will say the base rule set, maybe not for me, but maybe the optional rules really do change it up. So I will at some point give those a look. And I will definitely maybe let you know in a comment, or maybe I'll make a comment on this video and I'll pin it at the top about, hey, I finally went back and read the GM section. Here are my additional follow-ups. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Good night. Peace.